Welcome to 2023 and the first episode of Commotion Podcast in over 2 years. My name is Rob, and I'm excited to have you guys with us. James is on the faders, making sure we sound good, and I am ecstatic to welcome Chico back into the studio. Sir Mullet of Christiansburg has anointed us with his presence yet again. Listen, if you haven't heard the first episode, how we met, and all the stories, go back a few and check it out. Chico is amazing. I want to give a shout out to Sport Around Trophies and Awards for hooking us up with custom tumblers for all of the Commotion Podcast guests. If you need a trophy, an award, plaque, anything like that, give him a shout. His name is Brad, and he will hook you up if you say you heard about it through Commotion Podcast. 540-613-1892, or check him out on Facebook. Just look up Sport Around Trophies and Awards. I want you to take your hat off and act like you've been in the presence of the Lord, because it's a going down.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, the last time Chico came in to the podcast, it was almost 3 years? Was it 2 years?
It was right at 3 years ago. I want to say it was first week of March of 2020.
Unreal, man. Well, when you came in, the air left the room again. I just wanted you to know that the mullet is looking just as good, if not better than ever.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. How's it been treating you lately?
Man, like $1 million. Dude,
it
like
looks
$1 million.
fine.
Yeah.
It looks fine.
Somebody asked me not long ago, I think they had a little poll going as to how long it took me to get it ready every morning. And I said, I've got this thing down now after this many years.
How long have you had it?
Let me think. I think I started growing it like in the fall of 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're fairly new to the game.
I am.
But you're true to the game.
It was in my roots.
Okay.
I broke out a couple of photographs from back in high school and when I, was still a teenager. And like I tell people, back then I was, full of promise. Now I'm just full of promises.
I like that. I might have to steal it. That's ridiculous, man. So what's been going on? How has the last 3 years been treating you, brother?
Buddy, it's been crazy, hasn't it?
Yep. So you had, when we last talked, I think you were getting ready to have hip surgery.
I was.
Was that right?
I was.
How did that go?
Well, had it set up for April 1st.
Okay.
I want to say it was about 2.5 weeks out. They started shutting everything down.
Oh, shit. That's
surgeries
right.
and all like that. And and it was a tough time because I had really put it off so long that there wasn't a whole lot of use left in it.
Oh,
and, I told people that.
Bone on bone at that point? Or?
Yeah. And I said, I want the surgeon, when he saws that thing out, I want him to hold it up and show his staff and say, now that is a well-used hip. And then either throw it in the trash or give it to his dog, whatever they do with
I
those
wonder what they
things.
do with that. Hopefully they don't give it to a dog. That would be weird.
Wouldn't it, though?
Dahmer dog, maybe. Gotta give it to their dog.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like that'd be a bad start to a
I didn't
bad
ask
pattern.
him. It was a little uncomfortable, so I didn't ask him.
Yeah, understandable.
What do you do with that after you're done?
Yeah. I probably would want it. Would you want that?
I thought about that, but I had a better idea because I told my wife that now that I've got this, prosthetic, it's made out of titanium, that once I die and she cremates me, that thing will make a good gear shift for her car.
Put that on the hearse.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, you can even draw the little lines for which way the gears go.
That's ridiculous, man. That would be one hip gear shift. No.
That's what I'm talking about.
Would you mind to pull that just a little closer to you?
Yeah.
Sorry. We got these new microphones. This is the first episode. We're just trying to figure it all out.
Absolutely.
So COVID, man.
Yeah, it was crazy.
In the world? I try to move past it, but you can't help but talk about it. And how did that affect you guys? Did it change anything for you?
Well, other than putting the hip surgery off for 3 months.
Okay.
Because I think I ended up with it July 1st
Okay.
of 2020. Went exceptionally well. Probably wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done, but a week later, I mowed my own grass.
You stubborn, ain't you?
It's funny because we were backing out of the driveway to go somewhere, and Jessica looks out. She's looking around. She said, "Why does the yard look like it's just been mowed?"
So this was wife-driven lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, maybe because I cut it.
Was she pissed?
Well, the car stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did what?
Yeah. So,
Dang
yeah.
So
And-
I guess that didn't stop the healing, because I see you yanking close to 500 pounds now on a deadlift.
Yeah, that's another crazy one. They had told me, you're going to be limited, severely limited. Or I think they said nothing more than 50 pounds.
Well,
So I obeyed that for a year. I was really good. I did all my PT. I did exactly what they told me to do. I checked my ego at the door when I went into the gym.
yeah.
I was telling a guy in there the other day, I said, I really had to leave it at the door, leave my ego at the door, because I come in and I'm in a gym with college students.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That are moving ridiculous amounts of weight.
Well-oiled machines
Yeah.
still actually produce testosterone.
Naturally. And so there I am with a 25-pound plate on each side of the leg press, and just singing away. And
That's tough, man.
and it's not like you can go up and go, "Hey, man, I just want you to know
Yeah.
I had hip surgery." That's the
About to
reason.
get a shirt made that says,
Yeah.
"Sorry about my weak-ass lifts today, guys."
Don't judge me. I had hip surgery.
Just wear sunglasses and don't look at anybody.
Yeah, that's a trend. And I said, where the incision is, I couldn't show anybody,
Yeah.
not without a complaint and them revoking my membership again.
Yep.
No, just kidding.
Lunk alarm.
Yeah, that's right. But like I said, as far as that goes, man, I couldn't be happier
Good.
with how it went. And so I gave it a year. And then as far as the weight room goes, and then I just started testing it out.
Yeah. How did it take you a while to get back to a baseline to where you felt like you could add some weight and feel good about it?
I started just kind of playing with some weights.
Yeah.
And I said, if it's getting uncomfortable, like I'll stop. But like I really didn't do anything too crazy. Maybe like 185, 225 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
And there were some guys in the Army that were working out in our gym, and they were members of the Army station, the recruiting station in Christiansburg.
Okay, they're in the mall. Is that the one in the mall?
Yeah, in the
Okay,
mall.
Yeah.
So one of them, Sergeant David Sass, was running like a fitness competition type thing, that the Army was sponsoring.
Okay.
And we kind of talked about it, and I said, man, I miss those days of being able to compete, because I competed like 24 years ago is when the first one I did. It was in 99.
So did you do like strength, or was it bodybuilding?
Mine was strength.
Okay.
And I mostly just did like some local competitions
Okay.
and stuff like that. But I loved it.
Yeah.
Like once I started doing it, I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
But then again, I was a whole lot younger too.
Yeah, man. It puts a toll on your body.
It does.
Because my neighbor in Christiansburg, like, he got me into lifting heavy, and he was doing all the strongman competitions, and he was just a horse.
Yeah.
Every lift he did was like my max was his warm up type situation. Just a monster. And, but one little setback, it seems like you work 3 years and then one setback and it takes you.
Yeah.
I mean, it just destroys you.
It
But
does.
sorry, yeah, go ahead. So Sass was his name?
Yeah. And so he said, man, just, whatever you feel comfortable doing. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you want to do it, man, I'll put you in it. So he was in there the morning that they were running it. And I said, man, let me just throw some weight on here and see how this thing goes. And I said, if it starts hurting or it's uncomfortable, I'll stop.
Yeah.
And so I think I ended up that day with like 415.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Yeah. So I was pretty excited about that, even though, in all things being relative, it really wasn't that much compared to what I used to could do.
Sure.
But I also used to not have an artificial hip.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, you've got synthetic parts now, which in theory should make you stronger.
You know,
right?
well, somebody said, you know, does it make that bionic man sound?
Well, does it?
I said, you know, I should have asked for that.
Yeah,
I'm
put
sure
the
it
mic
would've-
up to your hip real quick now. So how did the, once you kind of felt a little better and you were able to put 4 plates and a couple nickels on there, like how did you feel after that? Were you like, oh, it's on officially? Was that like the turning point to where you were like, I got this?
Yeah. After I did that, I was like, I've kind of felt like I'm like, all right, now I'm back.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm back.
And when was that? How long ago was that?
That I did the 455.
Yeah.
The 455 was just Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was just yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I saw that video come
Yeah.
up. I was like, get it, bro.
Yeah.
Coming back, you know, especially after, because I tore my IT band and my legs just hasn't been the same, you know?
It's hard. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely tough. Any kind of physical thing like that can really set you back and hurt your training and stuff. And I've had some great people along the way for motivation.
That helps. That
The
helps.
week before, I'd done like 435. And if we back up about 3 weeks from that, I had actually missed 455.
Okay.
I had a guy in there doing filming it, and man, I got it like halfway up, and it was just it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Do you get stuck below your knee or do you get stuck on the lockout? Usually when you miss one, is it on the?
It's usually on the top part.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually on the top part.
I'm the same.
Well, you know, a lot of people are like, man, that's crazy because if you can get it off the floor. I said, yeah, but if you run out of steam, you know.
Yeah.
I had him filming it, and I just, like I said, I got halfway up with it and just could not lock it out.
Yep.
So set it back down and, you know, kind of retooled and looked at what I did. And I'm one of these. Sass used to also make fun of me for writing notes. Because
Hey,
he would, because I have a notebook, and I record my workouts. So he'd always walk by and make, you know, some kind of comment about my phone number is.
Of course he did. I could tell, you know, because when we lead up to a podcast, you know, the way that we used to do it, I would do a bunch of research and just try to figure out some talking points and stuff like that. And I like the new thing. I'm going to have a few things here and there that I know I want to hit, but I want the guests to be able to talk about what they want to talk about. And then we just kind of roll from there, you know? So I knew when you came in, you had a list, you've got some talking points and stuff. I'm like, yep, my man's prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the last time when I left out, I was like, oh, man, I forgot about that. And then I forgot about this, and then I forgot about this too. And so I was like, you know, I need to make some notes and stuff.
So how has, you know, post the damn panic, I guess, for lack of better terms, I think we're getting back to normal. I think everything feels good. That's the whole reason we decided to kick this back up. I was never scared of the situation.
Right.
I just didn't want, you know, without knowing, I didn't want to bring people into my house, into my babies and, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you just never know, you know. And did you ever get it? Did you ever get COVID?
Well, that depends on who you ask.
You can't ask the doctors because I think they're wrong.
Well, you know, so we did this podcast, the first version of it in, like I said, I think it was the first week of March of 2020.
Okay.
So I had proposed to my fiance or my girlfriend that became my fiance in the December before that. So December of 19.
Yep.
So January, she starts planning a wedding. And so she's wanting to have it, you know, in Tennessee and, you know, have folks come down and everybody gets, you know, we were trying to get a big cabin and have everybody in that. And we had some folks that couldn't make it, some that could make it for a couple of days, some that couldn't make it but for one day. So I told her, I was like, don't stress it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the logistics of an out-of-town wedding for people, it's sometimes it's hard, man.
Oh, it is. And
like,
she was getting so stressed.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, like, you know, just let it be. It'll work itself out. And it did, not the way I thought it would, but
Yeah.
it worked itself out because, up until I think it was the 1st of June, you couldn't gather up more than, was it like 10 people?
Oh
in a
yeah,
spot?
there was a definite limit. Yeah, it might have been 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up getting married June the 6th of 2020 in a super romantic setting on the ramp of my storage shed.
Damn.
I mean, man,
I
I got a heart.
But here's
and I
the
care
thing.
about people, and I want to see them happy.
I put my mower up at least.
Yeah,
Did you
that's
mow before?
I did. I wanted the yard looking good because, man, I'm big on my yard looking good.
But dude, there's something to be said about that. Like, in my opinion, like there's something to be said about an intimate, however government-driven intimacy may have been, wedding where you don't blow your freaking wad of money and time and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and you really enjoy what it's really about. See, when Kim and I got married, we got married in Nashville, right? So of course, all of our friends and family for the most part are here, right? In Christiansburg, Reiner, that whole area, and all of my people. I love my people. They came down. We did the thing.
Right.
We rented out an entire music venue. The bar next to it had basically an open bar. Like when we got said and done, I had a rockabilly band rolling, then a
Nice.
DJ, and I look back on that and I'd be like, that's like a small house, a camper,
yeah. Oh, I bet.
And now, granted, Kim will probably be pissed that I say this, but it was awesome. It was beautiful. Right. It was romantic. We had the best time ever. We stayed in the downtown in the Omni in Nashville. She passed completely out. I went down the streets of Nashville at like 4:00 in the morning just trying to find some damn pizza. And I came back. She was out. I drunk, scarfed pizza, and we were out. And then we left for San Juan the following day,
Right.
day after. But there's something to be said about that,
Oh, yeah.
I don't plan on ever getting married again because I absolutely adore my best friend. But
Right.
if I were to do it again, and I think if she were to do it again, we'd save that money.
Yeah.
So maybe
Right.
a pandemic can hit.
Yeah, that's exactly
So it went off
right.
without a hitch, right?
It did. We could only have, I want to say 25 people because I think they had changed it from the 10 to the 25. So I
Okay.
think we had like 25 people there. But it went off without a hitch other than the fact it's, I think it was like about 90 degrees that day. And then the AC got stopped up. So
Of course.
it quit working. So everybody's sweating inside the house trying to get food, But
Welcome to the party.
yeah, but
So the mullet was extra moist. It
absolutely.
was looking good.
In typical me fashion, it was snakeskin cowboy boots, blue
Dang.
jeans, and a sleeveless button-up shirt.
You bad mother.
I'm telling you, man, you got to
I'm
redneck
surprised
it.
people weren't fainting, dude. You came out and you stood there with the official, and people were actually keeping their composure. So that's.
Well, I think the 6 foot rule of having to stay 6 feet apart
gotcha.
created enough airflow in between everybody that it kind of.
because 6 feet and closer, they would be in that kind of Aquanet / just glory zone is what I'd like to call it.
Absolutely, yes.
Is that what you call it?
Yes,
Glory zone?
the Moroccan oil, the scent of the Moroccan oil. It's like
So, hey,
aphrodisiac.
listen, that sparks actually a funny question, right? So I put out on Facebook and Instagram today, hey, we got Chico coming in. If any of our listeners or friends have a question, right? So Derek H.,
Okay.
right, asked, Dapper Dan or FOP?
Oh, I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
you
can't
all-
do FOP.
So you can't do so FOP is water based. I had to look this up
Did you?
because I have basically been bald or shaven my head for
understand.
30 plus years. So
Yeah,
I
I
had
understand.
I don't know what product is, and I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's a pomade. Zero clue, bro. So Derek, there's your answer, man. Dapper Dan, man.
Absolutely, yes. And so I had to get all these hair care tips, from basically one of the girls at work.
Okay.
And she straightens her hair. I'd have never imagined that it was curly.
Okay.
But as it started growing out, it was getting a little frizzy. And she's like, you're going to have to do something about that. I was was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And she said, you need to get some stuff to put in it. And I said, well, what do I put in it, like gel? And she's like, no. And I said, why am I listening to you? Like, your hair's straight. And she said, my hair is just like yours, but I put a flattening iron on it every morning.
That's a lot of work.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, you have my attention.
Yeah.
So she told me what I ought to go get. So I go over to Sally Beauty Supply. And now I walk in, they're like, hey, welcome back, Mr. Cole. I'm like, I may be spending too much time in this
Got you
place.
a VIP locker with your pomades and
Yeah, they want to know if I want to join the VIP club. I'm like, I am the VIP club.
yeah, it's modeled after me.
Yeah, that's right. So,
That's funny, man. So how's marriage treating you?
man, it's fantastic.
I see you guys always on the bike and doing stuff, and
Yeah, it's fantastic.
it's a great journey, isn't it?
It is. It is. And, she's a great partner to have. And, we've got 3 great kids. I had one that I came into the marriage with, and 2 that she came into the marriage with. And, it's tough when you blend families.
Yeah.
But, she gets along great with my daughter's mom. I get along better than I think Jess wants to admit, excuse me, with her ex-husband.
Yeah.
Because we're texting all the time,
Yeah.
which is for most people probably unheard of.
Sure.
To text their current spouse's ex-spouse.
Yeah.
He refers to me as his ex-husband-in-law.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But, he's had to come over and help us do some different things that are far beyond my skill level. But, it's all about, raising healthy, happy kids.
That's the thing.
It is.
And most people don't understand that.
They don't.
Put your selfish self aside. The kids,
Yeah.
you get along. Just be good people.
Yeah. And to me, adults need to be adults so that the kids can be kids.
Yep.
And that's the way that it should be.
Yep. 100%.
And it's not that I have to do anything, because Corey is super easy to get along with. And a matter of fact, we view things almost identically,
Yeah.
when it comes to most stuff that you run across in everyday life. And, shoot, the 4th of July every year, the last 2 years, me and Jess go on a bike, and then Corey will take their son Sebastian on a bike.
That's cool, man.
So, yeah, and we go somewhere and take a ride.
Well, congratulations for being freaking civilized. Because you don't hear, you just don't hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the truth. And, I've said all along that the 5 or 6 of us, ever how many you want to say, because my daughter's mom is remarried too, that all of us could literally sit down and write a book on how to co-parent.
Yeah, man.
And how to co-parent effectively.
Yep.
But it's pretty simple. You can put it in one sentence: stay in your lane.
Yeah.
That's
That
as
makes
simple
sense.
as that, man. Stay in your lane. There's certain things that you do as a parent, and certain things you do as a, step parent, or ever how you want to call it, a bonus parent.
Yep.
And there's certain things that you don't do.
Yep.
So,
And that's what, being a dad, I got a 5 and 7-year-old now, and I struggle daily with staying in my lane. I mean,
yeah.
I do,
Oh, yeah.
Like I find myself not being mean, but being like, I want them to be so good, and I want
Right.
so much for them that it pains me to the point of like getting frustrated.
yeah.
And that's not fair to them to see frustration. So I try to I literally try to handle them with kid gloves.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let them know that shit ain't gonna fly.
Yeah. That's right.
So I'm finding that balance of being their friend,
Right.
which, everybody says you're not their friend, you're their parent.
Right.
But I had a parent and not a friend.
Right.
And that is not a cool place either.
Yeah.
So finding that balance for me is what I want for my kids. I want to find to where they want to hang with dad. They want to come downstairs. They want to do cool stuff,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And I see a lot of my fellow friends and stuff like that getting their kids into the sports and, you know, doing all that and stuff like that. And, you know, I've never been like, my brain, I could see martial arts and stuff like that, but I've never been like a big sports guy.
Right.
Football, baseball, stuff like that. I watch it, love the Hokies, love all that stuff. But like, you know, I've got a couple buddies. In fact, next week, Joseph Collins and Matt Hand are coming on.
Gotcha.
And they're big into wrestling.
Right.
You know, and I was thinking, man, I could probably jive on that.
Yeah.
You know, I could dig on that. But I think now, you know, you see their kids starting at like 2, 3, 4 years old. I'm like, whoo. I don't know, this is building some little rockets, man.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
some bad little boys coming out. So,
yeah, I taught Joe in the police academy.
Did you?
Yeah, sure did. Yep,
that's
sure did.
killer, man.
Yeah.
He seems, I've never met Joe, and of all the friends that we've got, you know, you think we'd cross paths, especially with law enforcement. It's the same as us. You know, when I killed you in Brew Coffee, I took that picture, you know, and then everybody started tagging.
Yeah.
You know, it's surprising that we had never met, and it's the same with Joseph.
Yeah.
You know, I guess he was town and then county.
Right.
So, but that's cool. You taught him. What were you teaching at the time?
So the first thing I had to go and do at the academy was general instructor school.
Okay.
So I had a friend named Paul Tickle that was in law enforcement, worked at Radford PD, and we were good friends, hung out all the time. He would come over, we would watch wrestling pay-per-views.
Nice.
You know, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, let me just mention that my daughter was born during SummerSlam.
So you weren't there.
Well, you know.
Oh, no. You missed your daughter's birth for SummerSlam, Chico?
No, I didn't. But it was funny because I remember her mom said, I'm going to lay down, get me up, you know, a little bit before it starts and whatever.
Yeah.
So
she was down with SummerSlam.
Yeah, she,
Okay,
you know, because Paul was going to come over, and I think
got
we were going to sit and watch it and all this. And so about 30 minutes before I was supposed to get her up, she comes through the house and said, I think my water broke.
Oh.
And I was like, it's getting ready to start here. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I did.
So we're good for 3-4 hours?
Yeah. How bad is it?
Like, how much water are we talking?
Yeah, that's right. Is it a towel or a washcloth?
Give me a shout when you're about every 8 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. And so, you know, off to the hospital we go. And during the whole procedure, they're like, are you okay, Mr. Cole? You okay? You going to be okay? I said, all right, you know, like, you're not feeling queasy, are you? And I'm like, I'm really hungry. Y'all got anything I can eat?
We had hors d'oeuvres and stuff. SummerSlam's going on. I'm
think-
really just upset right now, Doc.
Well, yeah, because I was, you know, we were going to eat, you know, when the pay-per-view started. So I hadn't had anything to eat. So they brought me a pack of crackers or something like that. And then I cut the umbilical cord. Man, it's, you know, it's one of my daughter turned out as normal as she has. I kid you not.
Has she heard this story about how she interrupted SummerSlam?
She probably, if she has, she's probably forgotten about it. But I may have mentioned it to her.
Kids nowadays don't understand how big that was.
Well, and that was back in the day when you had to call the cable company to order it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't set the VCR because I was like, well, you know, I'll set it, you know, when it gets closer to time. So I didn't set the VCR.
Dang it. $40 down the drain.
Missed it.
Who do you remember who was on it? Was it like a cage match or what was it?
I want to say Bret Hart was in the main event.
Oh man, the golden days.
Oh, I'm telling you, the Hitman, you
Dude,
know.
so one of the coolest memories that I have, because I was a huge like Hulkamania fan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Stinger was the guy, Ultimate Warrior. I mean, the Road Warriors.
Yes,
that was the heyday for me. Like I loved that. That was pre all, you know, John Cena and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I was in New York, right? We were doing, I think it was the New Year's Eve deal in Times Square.
Okay.
And we were staying at the hotel. So when we pull the bus up, I get out and I look over and I see a head that's super familiar in the downstairs bar.
Right.
Right? I'm like, what? Who is that? And he's like waving for us. And it was Sir Charles Barkley.
Really?
So he brought us in, right? Bought everybody drinks. We hung out, did that thing. So I'm like, that was surreal.
Yeah,
okay.
that's cool.
And then I go out to go back up to my room, and I look over, and Hulkamania is running wild in the lobby.
Holy cow.
So I was like, this is the best hotel I've ever stayed at.
No kidding.
And he, you know, I mean, he looked like the Hulkster.
Wow.
Like nothing, you know, I mean, he had obviously
Yeah.
over time, you know, he didn't have the 22s or whatever, but I was like,
Still Hulk Hogan.
like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
You know, that type of fame,
Yeah.
I feel back in the day when you didn't have everything at your fingertips.
Right.
Everything was readily available. You knew everything about every celebrity. Everything was available.
Yep.
So back then, you know, you had to either go to Muzz's or Ryder
Yeah.
Food Center and rent a VHS cassette.
Yeah.
And to find these people. And you know, so to me, that had more of an impact.
Right.
Hulk did that. Then now if I saw him, you know, yeah, it wouldn't have the same, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just, it feels different. I feel like influences are different because everybody's so fly by night now.
It is. And everything's so quick. You know, it's instant gratification for everything, you know. And I've heard guys talk about, you know, being so into wrestling that they would trade, you know, VHS tapes with certain people, you know, and they'd trade them out. And then they would order some. And you remember, if you are old enough to be able to remember, you had to mail a check in. Then that company would have to get it, cash it, process it, and it'd take 2 months.
See, I don't think I ever did that. Like the furthest I went with that was like the Columbia House records, you know, or tapes, where you could get like 900 tapes for 99 cents.
Yeah.
I think I probably still owe them money.
Oh, I know. I know for a fact that that's where I got all my first albums and stuff.
Like Pearl Jam, I think I owe for Pearl Jam and probably Audio, or, you know, Soundgarden probably.
I'm pretty sure I still owe for Run DMC and Houdini.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
I was a big Houdini fan.
What was your first CD? Do you remember your first CD? Mine is really bad.
You know, I actually, the CD, the album, the cassette tape.
The CD, like when CDs came out.
Okay.
Like, I'll tell you while you think about yours. So my goal was to have a CD player. They had been out for a long time. You know, my parents just didn't believe in spending money on frivolous things.
Right.
So for Christmas, I got some cash, and my grandparents bought me a CD player. Not one of the cool waterproof Walkman yellow Sonys that were just off the charts.
Right.
With the skip reduction and all that. But you know, I got like a CD player, probably like a Sanyo or something. And then I went and I got money at my grandparents that lived in Salem.
Okay.
So on the way back through, I was like, I've got a CD player, but I don't have any CDs.
Right.
You know, what am I going to do? And I think I scored like 20 or 40 bucks for my Christmas at my grandparents down there. Right.
Nice.
So we're coming through, and I beg my dad. I'm just like, Dad, is there anywhere open? And he's like, it's Christmas, dude.
Yeah.
There's nowhere open. So we get off up near Sheeler, and we're coming down through there. I don't even know if Sheeler was there, but anyway. And we're coming down through, and I look up and I see cars at Hill's Department Store. Oh. I'm like, son of a bee sting. It is on. Dad.
Yeah.
So I run in there. He's like, you have 5 minutes. Go get a CD. Because I wanted to jam that shit at the house. You know, it's like, what are we doing? What's the point of a present if you can't enjoy it? So I go in there, and I don't know if you did this, but I bought music based off the cover.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
I understand. Yeah.
So at the time, there was a badass CD, right? I bought two. The first one was CNC Music Factory.
Oh, yeah.
Remember them?
Yes, I do.
Was that the one that, oh my gosh. No, that was Rob Bass, wasn't it?
I've got the power.
Yes.
CNC Music Factory. I've got the power.
So I bought them, and I bought Jesus Jones. Do you remember them? They were kind of like a emo-ish before emo was
I do
whatever.
Remember that? Yeah.
Because EMF and Jesus Jones were like really similar, but I bought the Jesus Jones CD and I bought the CNC Music Factory.
Nice.
So I'm sorry. One of them, you know, aged well.
Yeah, that's right. I think as far as CDs, for some reason, I'm thinking it was AC/DC Razor's Edge was the first CD that I bought.
That is very fitting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the only other one that I could think that maybe might trump that is if you said Twisted Sister.
Well, you know, and I had a Twisted Sisters cassette tape back
Did you
in
have the one
day.
with the bone?
Oh, yes.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a killer album.
White Snake.
Oh, man. So one of my best buddies in the world is Perry Richardson.
Really?
And he was the bass player for Firehouse.
Nice.
And now he plays for Stryper, the Christian band. So he, you know, there were nights when we'd be traveling, you know, we'd be 100, 200 miles in between,
Yeah.
and he would pop in some old White Snake and sing those harmonies, you know, and
Oh,
Queen's
wow.
Reich. God, get out of town. Those
That's
boys used to
cool.
sing, man.
Yeah. And
Nobody
that's cool.
sings like that anymore.
But getting to hit the road with those guys, so,
Oh, gosh.
you know, that's super cool.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine the difference in lifestyle back then.
Oh, it's, yeah. And you know, that is literally a generational thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what year it was, but, you know, it was probably somewhere in the 90s, might have been late 90s, that the music train, I got off of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not riding it anymore.
Yeah.
Because anything past that just pretty much stinks
Yeah.
for the most part. Now,
Yeah.
there's some that I found that, you know, is fairly recent that I like. But as
Yeah.
far as what would be considered as, you know, temporary or contemporary or popular in today's world,
Yeah.
you know, 'cause,
It's hard to palate for me, man.
bless their hearts, man.
Especially hip hop.
Yeah.
Hip hop has gone bad. So I like the last hip hop artist that really spoke to me was Yellow Wolf.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard Yellow Wolf or
I don't
not.
think I have.
He's one of those musicians that kind of he does cross platform stuff. So he
Okay.
does stuff with like Shooter Jennings.
Okay, yeah, I
and,
like
you know,
Shooter
just
Jennings.
kind of stuff like that. So he'll go all the way from like pop the trunk type music,
Yeah.
you know, 15s and you know talking about that stuff to talking about Tennessee whiskey and you know how much you know his lady meant to him. So
Right.
like to me that okay I can that's decent I
Yeah.
can deal with that. But all this other mumble stuff I have no idea what's going on. The 2000s and 2010s for the most part for me were just trash.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that really came out for me in those eras, like Audio Slave, you know, with Chris Cornell, stuff like that spoke to me.
Yeah.
There's been some recent rock bands that I've liked that have you know kind of reminisced of old like Helmet,
Okay.
and stuff like that. Like James turned me on to a band called Idols, and where are they from, James? Do you know where they're from? Ireland. Okay. But he saw him up in New York. James lived in Brooklyn for a while.
Okay.
And saw him up there in New York. And he turned me on to them, dude. And they've just got that, like, I don't give a crap, you know?
Right.
And I like that. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
that vibe, just that kind of feel. But, yeah, it's just been a shortage of motivation. And as a musician, that's tough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I haven't been motivated to write since I got back to Virginia. For some reason, like I got 2 guitars sitting here, you know, and
Right.
stuff like that, and I just don't have the drive to it.
I've recently gotten into some, I don't know if you call it country rap or hip hop or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, like
Okay.
Moonshine Bandits, some Colt Ford,
Yeah.
like some Demon Jones,
All right.
the Lax.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we went to a place down in, I think it's Marysville, Tennessee. It's called The Shed.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's an outdoor venue right next to a Harley store. We went down there with some friends of ours, Jenny and Jeremy Athey, and he's retired from the Army. So
Yep.
thank you for your service, Jeremy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jeremy.
And we went down there and saw the Lax and the Moonshine Bandits. That was was awesome. Yeah.
Yep. I know a bunch of those boys, man. We did some shows with let's see, Jelly Roll. Have
Oh, yeah.
remember
Yeah, I like some Jelly Roll.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's done really well. I think he just went gold on
Did he really?
that Save Me, I think. I'm sure somebody will correct me, but he's awesome. And I saw him come out and do a performance with Craig Morgan at the
Oh, nice.
Opry. They sung Almost Home.
Wow.
Dude, if you remember that song, do you remember that song?
I do remember that song.
Lord
Wow.
have mercy, bro. You talk about a voice. Jelly Roll's got a great voice. Craig's just one of those guys, you
Yeah.
know, just a timeless voice.
Oh, yeah.
But Jelly Roll he did it really well. I was like, damn, dude.
Killing it.
Yeah, making it happen.
Yeah.
So what motivates you in the gym? What do you listen to? You got the headphones in, or you just listen to weights?
You know, I have. I've always said that if anybody ever found my playlist, like if you find my iPod, find my iPhone, smash it before anybody sees it, because they'll think I've lost my mind. Because it could go from literally. There's some stuff on there when somebody walks by, I'll turn my phone over. I want you knowing I'm listening to that. Dude, I got some Culture Club on there.
Hey, man.
You know, so there's my confession for the night.
Yeah.
You know,
if you would just go ahead and take those headphones off, and no, I'm joking, and just leave. You literally look around, you're like, "What's going on?
Who's opening the door back there?"
Just banging weights to Culture Club.
Yeah.
What's that song?
Which one
The
do I
one that-
listen to?
Yeah, the one that you like.
You know, probably Church of the Poison Mind
How's
would
that
probably
one go?
get you really going.
How's it go?
Dude, I can't sing it.
Chico.
Yeah,
how's it go?
I can't sing it. Damn it. Yeah, nice try.
Nice. I gave it a shot. Hey, before we go any further, let's take a moment and we'll listen to our sponsors.
Okay.
Just hit pause on that. We're in the red. Cool. All right. Cool. That's perfect proximity.
Okay.
Yep.
Proximity.
Proximity is a word that I used back when I was an audio technician, but not so much anymore. Proximity is the amount of body that your voice has or an instrument has in accordance to how close you are to the microphone.
That's how I would have described it.
Perfect. We're on the same page, my friend.
Oh, absolutely.
We are on the same page. So I don't want to keep people too much longer from what they really came here for,
Oh, my goodness.
right? Other than the mullet stories and us just being ridiculous. I got to hear some Chico stories, man. You've got the best stories. Of all the podcasts I had, you know, and I love every single one of them.
Right.
We're going to have some great stories and whatever. The one that stands out is that dumbass that was on the top of the car that you thought was a Christmas tree. That one killed me. So do you have anything that rivals that?
Dude, you know, it was so funny. We went to a Tech basketball game this past Saturday night, and it was me and, of course, my wife, Jessica, and we took her two kids, and they each took a respective friend. So we went out to eat, and so when we finished, we had plenty of time before the game started. So I said, you want me to take them on a tour of Blacksburg?
Okay.
So I kind of took them around and showed them, you know, where some significant events had occurred,
All right.
you know, over the years. And as a matter of fact, when we went by that intersection, I said, well, we had to stop at a convenience store because they needed chewing gum and candy. And it happened to be right there at Turner and Main.
Okay.
And so I pointed across the street and I said, you remember my story about the kid on top of the car? Yep, that's where I pulled him over. That's the location right over there. So,
That is awesome, man. So what else, if you had anything that rivaled that in your years of law enforcement, you know how you said, it's like, oh, I wish I'd have talked about that. I wish I'd have talked about that. What comes to your mind?
you know, it's easy when you spend 2.5 decades in police work. It's easy to sit around and tell war stories.
Yeah.
You know, in service now, which police officers, you know, have to be recertified every 2 years. When I was headed out of police work 11 years ago, it was moving to online. Like everything was online.
The only thing that we really certified on after, but you know, bloodborne pathogens and
Right.
blah, 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 is we went to the range,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah. There were certain, like we had directives we had to read and stuff like that, but, you know, and then I think the academy got wise to, well, they're not reading the material.
Yeah.
Like they're just going straight to the test. You know, so,
Guilty.
Yeah. So like this 40 quote, I'm doing air quotes here.
Yeah.
40 hours of research was down to about 12 minutes.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
But like I said, they would make you do all this crazy training and stuff like that, and it was it was okay. Some of the training and stuff that we had to do, you remember a lot of time spent with, your friends and your coworkers and stuff like that. And so I was telling you earlier that I taught at the academy.
Yep.
And I always enjoyed that aspect of my job. And I enjoyed that because as I have gotten older, I realized you acquire knowledge, especially if you pay attention.
Sure.
But even if you really don't, you still acquire a certain amount.
Yep.
But, if you're attentive, to things around you and people and stuff like that, you acquire knowledge. And so I also wanted to not only share that through the teaching part, but I also share that with my stepkids, my bonus kids. I share it with my daughter, because the way I look at it is when I die, I'm not taking anything with me.
Correct.
I'm not taking any knowledge that I have with me. I want to leave it all here, whether someone else picks it up and uses it for anything or not. I'm leaving it all here.
Yep.
And I kind of felt that way with teaching. I mentioned Paul Tickle earlier. I had watched Paul when I went for one of those recertification classes, the in-service. I watched him teach, and I was like, I love the way he commanded the class and how he taught it. And I was like, I think that's something I'd like to do. So I hit him up about it. And so he was kind of like, well, there's a specialized class you have to go through for that, for defensive tactics. And then you have to have general instructor just to be able to teach anything.
Yep.
Because basically that just teaches you how to teach, not how to teach something specific, but just how to teach people and how to reach people. So that was the first class I had. And then I think the next one I had was actually firearms instructor school.
Nice.
So I think I had that one next. The one I really wanted was the self-defense, the defensive tactics. Yeah, that's the one I really wanted to teach.
Yep.
And I would watch instructors, and especially the good ones, and I would try to take something from each good instructor, and I tried to take little bits of that to make me who I was as an instructor. Don't remember the guy's name right offhand. It might be in some of the few artifacts that I kept when I left the police department, because that's what they're becoming now, are artifacts.
Sure.
But there was an instructor in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is where I went for ASP instructor school.
Okay.
Which ASP stands for Armament Systems and Procedures, which was the expandable batons that we used. And that guy was probably the most influential of all teachers. He had such good energy, had such a good teaching technique on how to reach people.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved how he taught his class.
It's important.
Oh my gosh.
It's important to want to, to command that, respect and have the knowledge.
Yes.
And that a good combination, it sticks with you, obviously.
It's one thing to have knowledge. It's another to be able to transfer that to someone else.
Conveying it.
Yes.
Yes.
That doesn't understand
I'm
it.
so bad at it.
And one of the biggest things is having patience, because you have to have patience in order to be able, because the person that you're teaching is trying to learn something new. So it's already stressful for them. Then it's stressful on other levels too. Sometimes it's stressful because their job depends on it. Sometimes it's stressful because their career may depend on it. So you showing frustration or lack of patience does them absolutely no good whatsoever.
Nope.
but I enjoyed it. Like I loved it. Loved teaching DT. So we had 2 DT instructors at the Blacksburg Police Department. It's me and Joe Davis.
Okay.
And I didn't want to mention Joe's name because Joe Davis. Sorry.
Joe or Joey? Joseph?
Joey.
Joe have a nickname for him?
A lot of nicknames for Joe.
Oh, no, it's Joe.
So so I set the stage for this. So at the time, the defensive tactics programs in Virginia was pretty much split down the middle. Okay. So you had, I can't remember the dude's first name. I just remember his last name was Price. So you had a guy named Chief Price, Sensei Price, that taught half of the state. And then you had Dave Rodenizer with Cardinal Academy pretty much teaching the rest of the state. Well, the Price way was more strikes and punches and kicks and hits and things like that. The Rodenizer way was more jiu-jitsu oriented. So it was more control holds, pain compliance techniques. I guess you'd say maybe a kinder, gentler way of taking people into custody to where, if someone sees it, they don't see you punching or hitting somebody. They see you grab an arm, apply pressure to a joint, and take them to the ground.
Sure.
So we're in Richmond. We're at State Police Barracks. And literally the instructors are like absolutely just pounding on each other. And I knew this was coming because the night before we had met a couple of the guys in the barracks and they were like, so we asked them, are y'all taking the class? And they're like, no, we're part of the instruction crew. And the one guy goes, Mr. Price will probably demonstrate on me more than anybody else. And I was like, oh. And he's like, yeah. And he was proud of that. I was like, okay. Oh, good for you.
All right, bro.
So the next morning, he got his lights turned out like pretty quick by Mr. Price because he hit him with something. I can't even remember what they were doing.
Yeah.
But I remember he dropped the guy.
Yeah.
And then the instructor Price looks down at the guy and he's like, you all right? And the instructor is trying to say he's okay and looks down and he's like, he's not all right. Take him outside and get him some air. And I was like, my goodness, this is how they teach their fellow instructors.
Here we go.
So Dave Rodenizer always said, don't hurt your fellow instructors trying to teach students something.
Yeah.
Because if you hurt the guy you're working with, first of all, he's not going to be there to help you teach anymore.
Yep.
And second of all, he's probably not going to come back because you did hurt him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like,
he's got brain injury.
Yeah. He's like, teach, but take it easy on each other. There's no sense in throwing each other through walls.
Yeah.
And so they were teaching at the State Police Barracks, they were teaching this technique it was a badge grab. So somebody grabbed your badge and how to basically get them away from you. And so it was a series of strikes, but they were done in combination. And so Joe's like, I'm not getting this. And I was like, well, don't worry about it. And he's like, why am I not getting it? I was like, dude, it ain't that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like, just let it go. And he's like, no, I'm going to ask somebody to show me. I said, you're stupid.
Boy.
I said, yes. I was like, dude, you're stupid.
Joe Davis, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, front and center. I'm like, dude, don't ask these guys anything. Like, they're beating the piss out of each other in here, and they're giggling about it. And he's like, no, I'm going to ask this guy. So he asked this dude from Virginia Beach to come over and show it to him.
Yeah.
That guy might have been 150, 160 pounds. And so Joe's like, I'm not getting this. So the guy's like, okay, you grab my lapel like you're grabbing my badge. So Joe reaches up, grabs the guy's shirt. I heard a shot go off. when the guy hit Joe in the arm and then hit him in the wrist and then hit him in the brachial nerve that runs underneath your ear. And it was like a loud pop. And then I saw Joe's knees buckle. And then his eyes got real wide.
Oh, boy.
And so the guy goes, you got it, or you need me to show you again? and Joe was like, I got it. Like
his entire neck just got papped.
And I'm just standing over there like a wallflower, not saying anything.
Yeah.
And so I walked back over and I was like, dumbass, what'd I tell you? And he said, he hit me so hard. He said, I'm pretty sure I peed my pants. I said, man, I ain't asking these people nothing the rest of the time we're down here.
Just watch.
Yes. I said, if I take one thing back home, like I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
So
DTs are no joke, man. Especially, like that's where I tore my IT band.
Oh, is it really?
Like we were rolling. Ours was basically, a lot of jujitsu and holds. We started, it's when we were doing the day where we had like 8 stations and we were just rotating, through all of the tactical team and, all that stuff. So I was on station 3. Station 4. We started with boxing. So I boxed for a minute, moved over, and it was different forms of jujitsu, from the knees, from this hold, from whatever. And I got to station 3 or 4, and I got the guy, I was getting ready. I had my hand under his arm and around his neck, and I felt like I was good. Now, this is an instructor.
Right.
And I got ready to go around to take his back because I was substantially taller than the dude, but we start on the ground.
Yeah.
And when I went around, my toe got caught in my shorts.
Oh, wow.
Right? And my toe, when I went to kind of swing my leg around, it got caught. And the dude was able to get up. And when he came down on top of me, my band just, and I stood there. He was like, you got to keep going. And I wasn't going to say red. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was like, it got hot. That heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like
a little blowtorch.
I was like, red, And I mean, instantly, like my hands were shaking. It was just.
Feel the flame.
Just frustration, man. Because I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that part of it. It was fun to me. I wanted to learn, it was, how the bruises and your whole body's beat up by that point. And it was it was refreshing almost to feel that way at 40. Because I went through at 40. You know what I mean?
Just a child.
God.
Man child.
God bless. I felt like I was having a kid. But yeah, so the DTs for me was fun. And then I ended up having to do it again. And then we got 4 days into DTs and somebody tested positive for COVID. So I was testing the next day, right? So I couldn't do it before. I had to come back after the academy. They tested. Everybody went through. I had to go back to test. Went through the whole thing again.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? 2 rounds of DT. Dude got COVID. Had to stop everything, right? So then they reschedule it. I go back down there and they say, I show up at the academy for round 3. They say, nobody called you? I was like, no. They were like, yeah, they called it off. Everybody's sick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and obviously the DCJS by that point was like getting pissed because it's like a year that I'm into it and I don't have my quote unquote, didn't do the red man. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I did the whole thing,
Oh, yeah.
It's like, except the one thing that's going to take a minute,
Yep.
So.
I love doing the red man thing because I always like to try to push people, not to the point of failure, but I want you to see in a controlled setting about as bad as it's going to get.
Yeah.
As bad as I can make it, and I want to be able to see that you have the skills to survive that.
Yeah.
The same thing with like searches and stuff like that, because you know how it is, especially if you start searching a drunk, that mouth's going to start running.
Yeah.
And they're going to say some of the worst stuff to you. And so when they were practicing their searching techniques, like, I didn't pull out any stops, man. Anything was fair game that I would say to people because they may hear it out on the street, and if you get flustered in there, then hopefully we can work through that.
Yeah.
But if you get flustered out on the street, you may miss something that may cost you or someone else their life, in a search. Yep. So,
and we've seen, for lack of a better term, some really crappy modern day footage of where people have lost their shit.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But, you know, I enjoyed the searching, I enjoyed the car extractions, and I enjoyed the cell extractions.
Yeah.
Cell extractions were really cool.
Yeah, those were always fascinating to me, and the car extractions too.
Boy, you can get some leverage in a car.
Yeah, man.
Boy, I put a couple arms in.
Did you really?
Outside of the the car? Oh, I'm coming. That was a good time, man. That was a killer time.
I don't know about what. One thing I always taught was your best defensive tactic rests right underneath your nose.
Yeah,
and that's your mouth.
Oh, okay.
No, that was your mouth.
Yeah.
And I said, because that mouth right there that you have will either can get you out of a fight or get you into one.
De-escalation.
Yep. Depends upon how you use it,
Yep.
And my dad always told me, treat people the way they want to be treated. Mm-hmm. But when it comes time to have to fight, like hard and heavy.
You got to trust people to be who they are showing you that they are.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as you realize, like at least from my, just in life in general, as soon as I figure out who you are, I trust that you're that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're a loudmouth, drunk asshole,
right,
and I'm going to trust that's you.
Yep.
I'm not going to try to search anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
For something to prove me wrong.
That's exactly
like,
right.
That's you.
And so what we were talking about when I said we can all sit around and tell war stories,
mm-hmm.
and we can all tell stories about the time that we were either, in grave danger, narrowly survived. You saw some really bad shit, Me, I always preferred to make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to laugh myself. So I was always the type that if you made me laugh, chances are you're going to get a break.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, you're going to get a break. There was a Sunday. It was just before quitting time. And I was sitting and running radar, killing time more than anything. And this car came through my radar. Like, I kid you not, like they were literally cleared for takeoff,
Going back in time.
Oh, my gosh. And so I pull them over. It's in August. It is just before the students are returning, but a few are starting to trickle back into town.
Gotcha.
And these had been out in the county somewhere doing something, and they weren't drunk or anything because it was fairly early evening. And so I pull them over, and there's 4 or 5 people in the car. It's a little Honda Civic. And so the rear passenger, driver's side, rolls his window down while I'm talking to the driver. So my eyes immediately go to him. And he's like, hey, man, I'm just hot. I was just rolling the window down. And I wanted to say hi to the officer. Like, that was pretty good.
Okay.
So, I'm talking to the driver, and I was like, hey, you know what you did? She's like, no. I was like, what? Like you're taking the leaves off the trees back here when you came down the hill. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, she's got to get a ticket for something. But they're super nice. They're very repentive and apologizing and all the things that you want to hear,
mm-hmm.
When you're trying to give somebody a break. But I'm like, there's a term for folks that aren't familiar with it that's called malfeasance of office. Basically, they hire you to do a job and you don't do it. That's the definition of malfeasance of office,
mm-hmm.
is you not doing what you're sworn to do.
Yep.
So you have to find that median between doing your job and kind of giving some breaks along the way because of the human element.
Mm-hmm.
So where I had pulled this car over, it was right next to one of the frat houses on Roanoke Street. So as soon as I pull them over, there's all these people outside drinking. And they've got this pickup truck pulled up in the front yard. They took one of those big inflatable pools and didn't inflate it, but they used it like a liner for the bed of the pickup truck, and then they filled it with water.
Okay.
And so they got, a makeshift pool in the bed of this truck, and they're sitting there drinking. So a couple people hop down out of this makeshift pool and go into the house. So I kind of looked at it, watched them go in, and I'm like, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to the driver of the car. I just wait here. So I go back to my car. I'm like, all right, what do I write this girl a ticket for? Because she's got to get a ticket for something.
Yeah.
Well, about then the speakers in the house start blaring, and it's
NWA.
Nope, but it's the lead in for Cops, Bad Boys.
Oh yeah.
And I start laughing, and I can't help it because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I look over, and there's one dude sitting in the pool.
Yeah.
The back of the truck, and he looks at me and just shrugs like, man, what else would you expect?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's awesome. And so I literally wrote that girl the smallest ticket that I could write her.
Yeah.
And I went up there and told her, and I was like, look, at some point or another, you guys need to thank these dudes over here in this frat house because they made me laugh. And I even had this conversation with her. I said, these guys made me laugh, and because I laughed, and they made my day, I'm giving you a break.
Yeah.
So.
There's it's such a fine line of, like you said, malfeasance and actually understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And, trying to still do your job, but at the same time, make someone feel like this wasn't as bad as it could be.
Yep.
Because if you make it as bad as it could be, then they have no other room to think anything about you other than the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was always told too, when you pull somebody over, you either give them a break or you give them a speech, but you don't give them both.
Yeah.
You don't give them the speech and the ticket.
Yeah.
So I always tried to abide by that. And I'll never forget one time we, at the police department in Blacksburg, when it was at its old location, so there were parking spaces up front, and the sign there said, no parking, police business only. Okay.
Yep.
There were spots across the street that were for the detectives.
All right.
Those signs said, no parking, police vehicles only. Okay.
Yep.
So I roll up to those spots, the police vehicles only.
Yep.
And there's some kind of a little car that's obviously not one of our detective cars, and even more obvious, not one of our marked police cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the old ticket book out, start to write a ticket. This dude comes flying out the front doors of the PD. And he's like, well, wait a minute, that's my car. And I said, well, dude, you can't park it here. And he said, well, I didn't know where else to park. And there was open spots in front of the police department.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you could have parked over there. And he's like, oh, no, He said, because those spots over there are for police business only.
Well.
I said, well, what were you in the PD for? And he said, well, I was I had an appointment to meet with officer such and such.
So, police business.
And I said, okay. And he goes, wait a minute. And so he looks over at the sign and he said, no parking, police business only. And then he looks up where he's parked and he's like, no parking, police vehicles only. And then he repeats it another time to himself, no parking, police business only, no parking, police vehicles only. He looks at me and he goes, my parents are spending a lot of money on my education and I'm pissing it away. Dude, I did the same
Just leave,
thing.
bro. Just freaking leave.
And he was so serious and so heartbroken. I was like, I wanted to hug him, because I was like, yes, you are.
And you watched his brain literally click different cogs.
God, yeah, it was like, okay, the wheels are turning. Don't say anything. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. He'll get it in a second.
That's ridiculous.
Oh my God. It's just priceless. And, sometimes when you go out and you're doing stuff like that, you make an ass of yourself.
Yes.
It's inevitable,
Mm-hmm.
But you try to laugh about it,
You have to.
later. Cause obviously you don't want to take anything, too seriously, but, I remember pulling up behind a Sharky's downtown, and there were some handicap spots. And there's a car sitting in the handicap spot. It had a handicap placard, the thing you hang from the rear view mirror.
Yep.
But it was like crumpled up. I swear it looked like somebody pulled it out of a trash can.
Uh-huh.
And so it was crumpled up and laying on the dash. Well, I don't know how they are now, but back then, one side had the person's name and birth date that it was issued to, so that you knew who that belonged to. And then the other side had the expiration of it. So if you couldn't see one or the other side, one, you didn't know who it belonged to, or two, you didn't know when it expired. So I get my parking ticket book out, and I'm like, you know what? If it's valid, then they can take their parking ticket to the police department, and I'm sure the police department will validate it for them. So I get my ticket book out, and this guy's sitting out back on the patio eating a sandwich. And so I start writing the ticket, and he said, "That's my car." And reaches down, takes a bite out of his sandwich. So I kind of look over at him when I hear this voice, and I said, "This is your car?" And he's like, "Yep." So he reaches over and gets his fries and swirls them around in some ketchup. And I said, "That's your handicap placard?" Takes a bite out of his French fries, and he said, "Yep, that's mine too." And I was like, "Huh, really?" He's like, "Yep." Takes a big drink of his sweet tea.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this dude here is just trying to keep somebody, he's trying to keep his buddy from getting a ticket. And I said, "So your car and your handicap placard," I said, "is the placard valid?" He's like, "Yep." Takes another bite out of his sandwich.
How old was he?
35-ish.
Okay.
So I'm like, "So if this is your car, that's your placard, and it's valid," I said, "I tell you what," I said, "how about you come out here and you unlock your car and you show me that it's valid, and if it is, I won't write you this ticket. How that be?" You know, and I kind of winked at him, and I kind of rotated my ticket book around as I said, "You won't get this ticket here. How would that be?"
Yeah.
He said, "I'd be fine." And about then, he backs away from the table in his wheelchair. And I was like,
Chico. Couldn't see that. You were on the patio. Carry on.
well, this got ugly. So I was like, nope. You're friendly neighborhood bike cop's asshole. So I threw my ticket book back in my bag, zipped it up, and I was like, that ain't coming out of the bag the rest of the day.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Terrible feeling. Terrible feeling.
Carry on.
You know, it's, so like I said, you know, there's times that you go out here, and hell, I remember the first time I busted my ass on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Guess who I did it in front of?
Oh, I don't know.
10 other cops.
That's the worst.
Of course. 10 other cops. I hadn't been out of bike school long. You know, you had to go to this week-long school of torture.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't ridden a bike since I was a kid. I tried to go out and practice a little bit, but I didn't have a bike of my own, so it's next to impossible.
Yeah.
So I go to this week-long bike school, which basically equated to, you know, 8-9 hours of pedaling around the city of Roanoke, and then 3 or 4 hours of sitting my ass in hot water at night trying to calm my ass down because it was barking so loud, you know.
Yeah. Butt butter, man.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
It was horrible. So I come out of bike school. I want to say I went in like April.
Yeah.
So in May, they used to have the senior celebration in downtown Blacksburg. I think now they do it on campus or somewhere else, but they used to have the senior celebration, and it was for the not senior citizens, but the outgoing seniors of Virginia Tech. So they have these inflatable houses, and it was like one last shot of college life, being a child before you're into adulthood, buddy. It's time to start working and paying bills. And so, you know, they had all this stuff set up. Well, it had misted rain that morning. And so at that time, parts of the sidewalk had these brick pavers.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And so
They slick.
this dude went up the sidewalk. Sorry.
Yep.
This dude went up the sidewalk on a bicycle, which is illegal. So I was like, well, let me go over here and let me go warn this dude. You know, that was my thought. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to warn this dude, you know, not to do this anymore. And I was like, let's give me a chance to show me a little skills off of learning that school down there in Roanoke.
Little highfalutin school I went to.
So that's about the way it was, too. Because about the time I turned to go up on the sidewalk and that front wheel hit those brick pavers where they were wet,
Yeah.
right down I went. If you've never heard 10 police officers laugh in unison,
I can only imagine.
like it's like God clapped his hands together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's that loud. So I called up to the guy and he was playing this that he didn't understand what I was saying stuff. So I was like, you know what? I really don't want to go back down there in front of all them dudes. I was like, how about you just go to jail?
Sorry about your luck, buddy,
Yeah.
but these bricks are slick.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you're gonna pay.
Yeah. I was like, oh
That's
my God.
tough, man.
Yeah.
You know what? We when I was on the road, we were in Denver, Colorado, and they took my bike. We were at Grizzly Rose, and I took my bike, and me and my buddy went riding. And they have a strict no bikes at all policy downtown Denver, like
Yep.
at all. You
You
know?
can't even take them down there.
No.
Oof.
And they were like, if they see you with these, you're going to get a ticket. And I was like, how do you get around? You know?
Yeah.
You know, because they had a trolley or a tram or whatever.
Right.
And so we just pushed them the rest of the time. And I just thought that was the dumbest
That's crazy.
thing ever, you know?
Yeah.
Because we weren't like on the sidewalks. We were on
Right.
the road. And they said no. So a couple people were like, hey, you can't. And I was like, oh, geez. Being a steward of the city. Thanks, buddy.
Right.
Of course, I had like a full helmet and a GoPro and like all this stuff on it. So I wasn't exactly blending in.
Well, what you need is a siren.
Did you have a siren?
I
on
did.
yours?
I had lights and a siren because, state code said that all police vehicles must be equipped with lights and sirens. So we had to find a battery operated set of lights and siren. And damn, the siren was loud.
Yeah.
Like, does 115 decibels sound right? Or is
Good.
that,
Yeah, it's enough to aggravate you.
I mean, it's like it was pretty loud when you hit it. Like anybody around knew.
Yeah, James needs that. James has the most awesome bikes.
Really?
He's into these e-bikes,
Oh yeah.
right? And he's got one that's the fat tire e-bike. What's the name of that, James? What's the name of those?
Free ski.
Free ski. We're not talking about skiing. We're talking about bicycles. Friskies. Free ski?
Free sky.
Free sky.
Free
Okay.
sky.
So he's got one that's like 750 watts. Is that the big guy that you've got? It's got the wide tires on
Nice.
it and stuff like that. And he's got one with the skinnier tires. But I took that sucker off, and where I biked for so long,
Right.
you know, I was like, you know, I'm pedaling, doing the thing, and then I engage warp speed.
Uh-oh.
I was like, oh my gosh.
And it
this
took
is
off?
a different world.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, a moped, and it's completely silent. And, but, you know, I was thinking, dang, if I had this on the road, I could have gotten anywhere. And imagine you guys, you know, I mean, if you had an e-bike back there, back in the day.
I was dangerous enough as it was.
Yeah.
Just riding around and pedaling the way I did.
Yeah.
I,
Just sneak up on some mugs.
Something like that. The chief sent me down to the tech bookstore one time. She had some golf tournament that she was running, and she said, hey, the bookstore is giving us a football so I can get Coach Beamer to sign it, and that's going to be one of the door prizes or something for this golf tournament. She said, sometime during the day, if you don't mind, swing by there and pick that up for me. So I was on a bicycle. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I go in, and they gave me the football. So it's full-size football, but it's in a box.
Okay.
If you've ever bought a football out of a box, you know that the box doesn't have any sides on it. It's open so that you can see the football.
Yeah.
But it's still in a box. So they put the box in a bag. So I just tied the bag, put it over my handlebar. I was only going 2 blocks
Yeah.
from the tech bookstore to the Blacksburg Police Department. Like, what could happen, right? So I told this story the other night, and Jess is like,
Yeah.
you'll know.
Okay.
So I turn a corner on Draper Road.
All right.
And so I'm pedaling up through there, and there's 3 girls walking up the sidewalk. And so I look over, and I'm like, how you doing?
Ladies.
Yeah, how you doing? So when I look over to do that bag swung out. And then when it comes back, it came back just at the right time for when my right leg was coming up. So my knee hits the bottom of that box that's in that bag. The box goes up, hits the handlebar, turns the handlebar sideways. Right over the handlebars I went. Oh, dude,
Ladies,
yeah. Everything in my handlebar bag went out into the road.
Oh gosh.
Including me. I must have been in there too because I'm laying in the road. The siren's going off, and I'm like 6 feet from it, so I can't get back to it right away to turn it off. All I can hear is those girls first say, "Oh my God," and then they all started laughing. I'm like, "Oh my God." Of course, I told this story the other night.
You fell a lot, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And that was part of my stories when we were riding around. Is I'm like,
gosh.
So right there's where I busted my ass when the football hit my handlebars.
Yeah.
And Jess was like, well, that's what you get for looking at them girls. And I was like, I know.
Well, true.
Then we turned the corner and I said, in this parking lot right here is where I turned in. And it was the National Bank of Blacksburg parking lot there at Roanoke and Maine. I said, I turned into this. My front tire hit a patch of oil, busted my ass in this parking lot. There happened to be a guy that I had arrested the week before at 7-Eleven down below that looks up, saw the whole thing happen and goes, dude, what was that? And, of course, I said the only thing I could say, what was what?
What do you mean?
I didn't see nothing.
Zero clue what you're talking
Nothing to
about,
see
buddy.
here.
Carry on.
Nothing to see here. So,
Oh gosh.
I mean,
man.
and like I said, it happens.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of humorous things.
Yep.
That happens from time to time. By working downtown, in the downtown sector, I would get the walk-ins
Okay.
that came into the police department. So, man, most of the time it was nothing. Sometimes it was something to it. You literally never knew.
Yeah.
And half the time after you talk to the person, you're walking to the back, scratching your head going,
What?
why would you come in and report this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So years ago, and when I say years ago, I'm going to guess and say it's probably been close to 20,
Okay.
if not more. But this kid comes in, college student, and he's like, hey, I need to report this. It's really weird, but he said, I think it was like Time Life Books CDs.
All right.
He said, I had these things come in, delivered to my address. He said, but I didn't order these.
And sir, I'm obviously not a nerd.
And so he's like, I didn't order these, but that's my name and that's my address.
Yeah.
And he said, so I opened it up, I looked inside, and the invoice has like an American Express card. And he said, but I don't own an American Express card. And he said, so I found out that, somebody has an American Express card in my name. And I'm like, okay, any idea who might have done that? And he's like, no clue. No clue whatsoever. And I said, so have you like given your personal information out recently? And he's like, well, I did lose my wallet about a week or so back. And I was like, well, where did you think you lost it? And he's like, somewhere between here and Tech Campus. That's the only thing I can figure. He said, because when I got from here to campus and I went into the dining hall, I didn't have my wallet.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot to go on because it was just an order placed, that showed up at his door. So he comes back in, I want to say within a couple of weeks maybe. And he said they've done it again. I was like, okay, what did they do this time? He said, well, somebody's got another card, and this time they've ordered Subway on College Avenue. And then they tried to draw money out of the ATM here, and they also tried at the Food Line on North Main Street. So I was like, okay. So I go to the College Avenue Subway. At that time, it was in an old building, so they had no security cameras. Mm-hmm. The bank ATM, their camera was down. The one on Food Lion, believe it or not, where they had their ATM wasn't in camera view.
No, perfect.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How can I strike out 3 times? So, I always, as goofy as it may sound, I always believe that police work was like a business because people pay taxes. And so therefore they demand a certain level of service. They deserve your very best. And I had people ask me before, make a comment or something. I think the way it was usually worded is, I don't think I could be a cop because when I'm in a bad mood, I'd write everybody a ticket. And I said, well, see, I'm the opposite. Like, I'm human, try not to have bad days. But I'm human and they happen. So there's sometimes when you go to work and you don't want to be there.
Yep.
You want to be somewhere else.
Yep.
And it happens to everybody. So if I went to work and I was in a bad mood, I wouldn't even turn my radar on because I want as little interaction with people as possible. I don't want someone to get a ticket because I'm pissed off about something that they had nothing to do with. I want them to get a ticket because what they did warrants them getting a ticket.
Sure.
Not because I'm in a bad mood.
Sure. As it should be.
Right. So I always tried to give my very best, and I was a little frustrated because, I'm not having any luck with this poor kid, and somebody's like burning his credit history up.
Yep.
So the next time he comes in with another guy that lived in the apartment complex. I think he lived on the next floor up. And he's like, man, this is getting really weird. I was like, okay, what happened? And he said, well, someone forwarded my mail to his address, meaning the guy he brought with him. And that guy, who was an Indian, said, and someone forwarded my mail to an address in Terrace View.
What in the world?
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, wait a minute. Let me make sure I got this straight. So you, the credit card victim, someone forwarded your mail to this guy's address that lives above you, and you, the guy that lives above him, somebody forwarded your mail to somewhere out in Terrace View that you don't know where? And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, man, this is really odd.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, some time passes. So the credit card victim comes back in and he said, man, I got another charge on a credit card. And he said, or a couple more charges. I can't remember. They tried a ATM somewhere else. I think one that was downtown at the Wachovia. And then they'd ordered like some Chinese food, shit like that.
Yep,
So
yep.
I was like, all right, well, I'll keep trying. I can't promise you anything because I've had terrible luck or no luck at all so far.
Yep.
So I get to thinking about it, and I'm like, Chinese food, of all places, Chinese food. Very few people eat Chinese food at a Chinese place.
Like go in.
They either get it to go or they have it delivered.
Correct.
And in Blacksburg, most of the time, they have it delivered. So I know that they keep fanatical records. They're scared to death of getting in trouble.
Yep.
So they keep phenomenal records. So I go out to this Chinese restaurant. I was like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I have. This is what I need.
That mullet's so slick tonight, dude. It just keeps pulling on them headphones, bro.
I think I put too much oil in it.
Dang, dude. It's like a little baby seals are dying behind you.
Telling you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hear the angels sing. So he said, give me a couple hours. Come back. So I said, okay. So I go back, and he hands me a stack of paper, and on it was the credit card receipt, the handwritten note that they took when they took the order, and then the address of where they delivered it to. I was like, well, this is interesting because that address looks familiar.
Yeah.
It was the address of the guy upstairs
Okay.
that had come down with the victim the week before, complaining about his mail getting forwarded.
Okay, I'm seeing.
So I'm like, he got some splaining to do, Lucy.
Yes.
So
You got some explaining to do.
So it's like, I don't know, it's probably, I want to say it's about 11, 12 a.m. or 11 a.m., 12 p.m., somewhere in that vicinity, you know. It's around midday. And so I go up, knock on the door. He comes to the door, wiping eye boogers out. You know, he's still asleep.
Yeah.
So
College life, bro.
yeah. So I set him down on the steps because there's like 4 floors in the apartment building that they lived in. So we're on like the, I don't know, like the second, third floor. Because there's at least one more above us. So I set him down on the steps and I said, man, you got some explaining to do. And he's like, about what? And I said, well, for one thing, dude downstairs, his card was used to have Chinese food sent to your house. So that means you ordered it using his card number. So as I'm explaining this, it sounded like the damnedest fight you have ever heard had just broke out on the upper floor.
Oh.
And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, and he starts telling me what's happened.
Yeah.
And how he's gotten this kid's information, how he's found this kid's wallet.
Yeah.
And all like that.
Okay.
So he's in the middle of confessing, okay? This fight breaks out upstairs, screaming, like just loud screaming. And I'm like,
Dudes.
20 minutes ago, I had no clue who committed this freaking crime.
Yeah.
I've got this dude sitting here on the steps confessing
Dead
to me.
to rights.
And I've got a damn fight on the 4th floor that I'm going to have to go break up.
Yeah.
So about the time I was getting ready to say, you're going to have to hold that thought, he looks at me and he said, do you need to go get that? And I said, yeah, you come with me, but you stay back.
Yeah.
So I made him go and sit upstairs on the steps up there. And about the time I got to the top of the steps, like, I mean, this is intense. Like, and when I say intense, like, it's to the point where I'm getting ready to say, go ahead and roll me another unit this way.
Need backup.
And I realize that it's somebody getting pleasured.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so right about the time it gets to the point where the pleasuring has just hit its crescendo,
It's pleasuring.
I'm
point.
like, I look at him and he looks at me and I swear the dude grinned real big and he's like, I guess some people don't work during the day.
So you let him go?
Oh my God.
He made you laugh.
I couldn't, but I was like, okay, now we got to get back to the other thing at hand.
Oh
here.
my gosh, man.
It's just priceless.
3 stories up. Just tearing it up.
And I mean, I was like, well, alrighty then. And
All
I
right, carry on.
Like I said, it was intense because I was like, there's a hell of a fight going on in broad daylight.
What were
here.
they what were they doing?
You know, I couldn't tell you. All I know is that the windows were up, and all you could hear was the sound.
Like taking hits. These mugs were into that?
You know, I don't think it was like that. I think
just-
it was just,
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
So you thought it was a domestic taking
yeah,
place.
because it was so vocal.
Okay.
You know, yeah, it was so vocal.
So let's coming off that.
Okay.
All right, we're going to ask you some questions.
Awesome.
This
I
is
like
a new
questions.
little section. Just three questions. We'll probably go off of them just a little bit, but I
Okay.
want to see how psychotic or normal you are. All right.
This ought to be interesting.
How do you hang toilet paper? Do you hang it with the sheet in the front or the sheet underneath?
Sheet in the front.
You are correct.
Yes.
Who does the other?
I couldn't tell you.
James, do you do the other? Do you care? Do you use toilet paper? Do you use toilet paper?
You have a bidet?
It's number 4.
Are you a bidet guy?
James.
Test.
So yeah. Okay. So yeah, if I see it underneath,
Right.
I'm crazy enough, if you consider this a crazy action, I'll take that shit off and flip it around to prove a point.
It's not crazy, but if it is, we both are because I do the same thing. If I find a roll in the house
Yeah.
and it's a mullet, not a beard,
Exactly.
I fix it.
So here's
The only thing
thing
in the house with a mullet is me, not the toilet paper.
So if you look at the patent, it's over. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
perfect.
that's the natural order of things.
I just don't understand like the mentality. I think people are wrong if they do it the other way.
I could just try to get under people's skin.
Because how can you get a good like whip on it? You know,
You
if you got to
can't.
get that whip, you're going to whip that thing, and
Yeah.
it's just going to.
And then the next thing you know, you're going to have to try to roll
I
it
knew
back
you were
up.
good people, my friend. I knew
You
you were
know,
good people.
I do
All
what
right.
I can.
Number 2.
Okay.
What conspiracy theory do you think might just be true? There's a lot.
There is a whole lot. I think there's a good possibility that Elvis is still living.
Do you?
I do.
So he died, right, in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 1977. I was a huge Elvis fan. I used to do the Elvis, you know, the windmill that he would do, like the whole
Oh,
deal when I
yeah.
was a kid. Man, that's what I was known for. I'm surprised I'm not
Absolutely.
famous. But I don't know. I think there's more. What about Tupac?
You know, that's a good possibility too.
Like, and
know?
what about these conspiracy theories that like Beyonce is also Jay-Z?
That's an interesting one. I don't know that I've heard that one.
Or is it Jay-Z and Beyonce? Yeah, because if you slow down Beyonce singing, it sounds like Jay-Z.
Doesn't it?
And if you speed up Jay-Z's raps, it sounds like Beyonce.
Hey, you know, I would probably have to say that speeding either one of them up is probably the best thing you could do.
I would like to speed them up to the very end of the song and get rid of you.
Yeah,
I'm not much on it.
Erase that.
Yeah. So why do you think Elvis is still alive, man?
I think it's one of those things where he's the king.
He is
you know,
the king.
like should the king really ever die? You know?
I know him and Prince, right? Prince?
Yeah, yeah,
Prince.
absolutely.
We did a bunch of stuff up there in Minneapolis, you know, and I didn't appreciate it. It's one of those bands or musicians or artists that you appreciate later. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like with me, Tool. Like I never appreciated Tool until
Really?
I really listened to him.
Yeah.
And then Prince, what a guitar player.
Well,
what a shredder.
Yeah, and when you dig deep and find out all of the extra work that he did for other artists,
Oh gosh.
I think there was a story about Stevie Nicks.
Okay.
There was a song that she was writing, and she wanted Prince to corroborate on it. Called him up, middle of the night. He goes to her place. Allegedly, the story is he barely spoke 2 words, went in, cut the track, packed his stuff up, and left, and that was it. But, you know, I mean, that's how much he thought about music.
I know,
You
man.
know, so
Yeah.
you got to hand it to a guy like that.
Dude, I guess the first songs, that obviously Purple Rain, you know, you had that whole thing. But the first I really listened to him was the songs like Cream. You remember Cream?
Oh, yeah.
That whole like the New Power generation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Golly, he was a monster. Him and like Bruno Mars, when you get into the composition of the funk that goes into that music, man, shit the bed.
You know, and some of these guys, it takes them a little while before they find their groove.
Or they're allowed to,
Yes. Yeah, either one.
right? You
Yep.
got to pump those numbers out
Yep.
before you can be you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Especially now. Now it's
I bet.
golly, it's just a manufacturing business,
Yep.
man. That's all it is. It's like, well, we got 100 artists on our roster. We're hoping one of them hits,
Yeah.
or we're going to pay to make this artist hit. Pay all
Either
the-
one.
Welcome to the music industry. All right, number 3.
All right.
If you were on the show Shark Tank, you know the show Shark Tank,
Yes.
all right? So where they have a product and they try to get investors. What pitch would you make? I know you got something in your head that you think's worth $1 million.
For something that I would pitch to them
Yep.
as a product.
As a product. You got anything that you think would make the world better?
I would probably somehow combine all hair care products into one damn bottle.
Okay.
So that I don't have so much stuff sitting on my bathroom sink. Because I feel like when I look at it, I'm like, there is no way that one man should have this much hair care stuff.
I was going to ask, is it yours or Jessica's?
Oh no, it's mine. And she'll tell you, no, that's all his.
So what all's in your repertoire? You got a lot of stuff.
Oh, you got to have the leave-in conditioner.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a must.
Sure.
Moroccan oil,
right.
a must.
So let's start. Hold on. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We're getting post shower.
Okay.
We got to be in the shower.
Okay.
All right. So you're glistening. Your mullet is as long as it it's hanging.
Yes.
Sorry, that's odd. You're in the shower. Okay, go ahead. Just paint the picture for me.
So
Paint
then
it.
you've got a good palm size spot of conditioner that it's going to take to get through all of these curls.
Okay.
All right. So then you got to put that in and leave that for a few minutes.
All right.
Before you rinse it out.
Brand of choice?
Yes. No, not necessarily. Pretty much anything. It's got to be something though that's thick.
Oh.
Because if you get thin stuff, it's gone before you even get to the part where you're supposed to rinse it out.
Gotcha. You gotta cream that up.
Yeah.
Okay. It's understandable.
So then,
carry on.
In order to keep from dripping water everywhere, then you have to shake like a dog while you're in there. So you're slinging water. Is this too much? Am I going too far?
It's freaking perfect, bro. I just want to know how it's like being in the shower with Chico.
This is better than giving you the video where this didn't happen.
Yeah. I'll give you my email.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Keep it on the DL.
All right, carry on.
All right, so after a good shake, then you take your towel and you have to pat it. Let me tell you why. Because if you try to roll it, then you're going to get some dreadlocks going on.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, I guess it was 2 summers ago, I realized that there really isn't any shame in putting my hair in a ponytail when I go out and ride a motorcycle.
Okay, because on the previous episode, you told me that you took a couple rides and then that they got all dreaded up.
Man, it was bad. I think the last time I did it, I went to Bristol.
Okay.
And when I came back, like I literally spent almost 30 minutes the following morning trying to get a comb or brush through it.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was miserable.
We did that with my daughter. She doesn't have a mullet, but she her hair is she's 7 and her hair is below her bottom.
Oh wow.
And it is a struggle. My wife's like, we have got to cut her hair. That's my baby's hair.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Baby's got a mullet.
But anyway, all right. So we've got conditioner. We have patted that sucker dry.
Yeah, patted it dry. So now it's on to the Moroccan oil. So the Moroccan oil's got to go in next. Argan oil, whatever you want to call it. So,
right.
You put a dab of that, about the size of a nickel.
Little dab will do you.
Maybe, yeah, absolutely. Maybe somewhere between a nickel and a quarter.
Okay.
So you run that through your hair. What's left, you ready for this? Into the beard.
You throw, oh man.
Into the beard to condition the beard.
You come around to the front of the house.
Yeah, and then you get that glisten. Up front there.
Okay.
All right, so then you go to the leave-in conditioner.
All right.
Put some of that in.
Spray bottle or?
No. It's a squirt bottle.
Nice.
So, yeah. And I get the big boy from Sally Beauty Supply. You know what I mean? Because I go through too much of that.
Status.
Oh, yeah. You got to get the big boy. So you put that in. Now you're ready to try to start combing, which sometimes will take 2 brushes and a comb to effectively get through some of the tangles of that. And then I let that sit around and just kind of bake for a little bit.
All right. Marmalade a little.
Yeah, just let it sit there and kind of saturate. And then just before I leave the house, I reach for this hair care. It's like a lotion. It's like a hair lotion. Okay. But it also has argan oil in it. And that's the final touch that I put in the back of it.
Is that where the sheen comes from?
Yeah.
Man, it looks.
And then when you want the top good and tight,
yeah,
and that to lay down so where that it looks like when you walk in, you're ready to discuss some numbers.
Yeah, you're down to business.
All business.
Pull up a seat, boys.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Get the old Harry's hair gel.
Okay.
Yep.
And you just kind of do you crinkle that in there? You just
let it spike up.
Nice.
Because it'll naturally kind of spike up a little bit on top there. So, but I got a little more salt in it than I had last time.
You do.
Yeah.
I do like that though. Yeah. It's tempting me to feel like I should trust you more now. I'm like, okay. Before I was like, that's a little risky. He's coming in here with a risk factor.
Right.
Now I'm like, I know this man. I'm trusting you.
It's rugged yet masculine.
It is, man. It really does look nice. You've done well with it.
Well, I appreciate it. Somebody said not long ago, and I've heard it said a couple of times, not just anybody can wear a mullet.
New.
And I had to agree because I said, if you don't have the personality to be able to wear a mullet, then it just kind of looks like you were left over from the 80s. You know what I mean? And you have to have the personality to be able to talk about it.
What kills me now is all these kids and these country music artists that don't deserve the muffin mullet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You don't live that.
Yes.
You don't, just because you bought that set of boots or whatever, it kills me. That's not you, Right. You're not outgoing. You're not whatever. You're an imposter. Does that piss you off?
Like I noticed that the mullet is starting to go away a little bit.
Okay.
You notice that some of these kids are starting to cut it and stuff like that, and somebody not long ago said, "I see you're still rocking the mullet," and I said, "I ain't no quitter."
Yeah, dude.
I'm not a quitter. I'm not gonna quit this.
Welcome to my life. All right.
It's not a hairstyle; it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, get a grip.
Got to live it. Absolutely. But when I would see these young kids out places that had a mullet, I'd always compliment them on it. I'm like, dude, I love the hairstyle.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons for doing it. One is I wanted to acknowledge the work that they had put in on growing this.
Recognize game.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
Absolutely. I respect a fellow brother.
Yep.
But the other part is, I want the younger teenagers to understand that it's okay to talk to people you don't know as long as you're in a public place.
Yes.
Not on the internet or anything like that.
Which is a weird segue.
Yes.
To why you're wearing blue.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So we had briefly talked about this, and I was unaware of, I try not to watch the news anymore.
Right.
I'm just, the indoctrination on both sides, whether you're watching the red channel or the blue channel, is beyond, it's unbelievable.
It is.
You can't turn it on. I think, if you want to get into conspiracy theories, I think all those frequencies are destroying our bodies and destroying our minds.
Yep.
But that being said, it is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have chosen a color of blue. And Chico and I had talked briefly about that, about him wearing in the blue, just to kind of show support for those who, I don't necessarily know how to say it, who are trying to bring awareness to the trafficking itself. So why don't you tell me why does that hit home for you?
I feel like that there's certain causes like that need to be brought to the forefront. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers, a lot of people that may not necessarily have the best home life, that are easy prey and easy victims for people for human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like to ignore that we actually have issues like this.
Sure.
So I feel like it's, if you can show support of it, it's that in itself has a level of importance to be able to show that type of support.
Brother, I feel like it is flat out ignored.
Yeah, and I think a lot of different problems. When they sit there and say, we don't have this problem, we don't have that problem, we don't have a human trafficking problem, or it's not as bad as what you make. And it is, and that's the reason that so many, young people will wind up either never accounted for or they wind up as a criminal statistic as far as a victim of a crime.
Yeah. It blows my mind and how deep it goes into our government.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, if we can cut ties from fake for a minute, everything that's coming to light as far as the whole Epstein thing and as far as the names that were on that list, and as of recent, I don't know if you know too much about Andrew Tate, but he's like I guess a self-made guy that's become big on YouTube and stuff like that.
Right.
And he and his brother were arrested in Romania with ties to human trafficking.
Holy cow.
And it's one of those situations where you're like, he's sitting here, acting holier than now, like he is a godsend and he knows everything and how to be the perfect alpha male and all this stuff, and
Right.
telling all these women why they're subpar and doing all this. And then he comes out, well, it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not,
Right.
I can't pass judgment on that. But everything at this point seems to have been so far buried and out of reach. It's like people just they don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
That this actually happens, and it happened. It didn't happen to me, obviously, but we were in Nashville, right? Kim and I, and we were in Publix and we were shopping, right? And my daughter at the time was maybe 1, okay? And I'm really hyper aware. I feel like I can read a situation pretty well.
Right.
So there was a guy in there, and he didn't even have a cart or a little basket with him. And he was on an aisle, and he was looking at stuff. And he was really close to us, and he got closer, and he asked a question about something that was just stupid. And I kind of looked at him, and I just made my quick judgment on him. I was like, this dude's up to no good.
Right.
And I said, buddy, I don't know. You need to go on. And then I watched him. By then, I was like, Kim, stop what you're doing.
Right.
I'm going to watch this guy, but I want you to go somewhere that's within view of, people.
Right. Good thinking.
So she went there. I went and I watched this guy, and he just kind of walked the aisles. All right. He walked them, went out, never bought anything. Right then and there, my mind was like, he was trying to catch us off guard.
Yeah.
And I got his, never did anything with it or anything like that, but I got his plate number and the car and all that. So I followed him outside into the parking lot, and I was like, hopefully I run this dude off. Hopefully I ran him off. But at that point, I wasn't aware. This was 2000 and probably 18, I guess, before we came back, or 17. No, it was 16 because my daughter was 1. And it was one of those, that was the first time where I was like, oh shit. That might have been what was going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. And it's strange enough with his behavior that you can't discount it that it wasn't.
No.
So.
And it happens all too often.
Oh,
You get these kids that are, they're unattended. They're left in stores to run around. They're on the streets playing. It's not the same world we grew up in, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not 1985. And the shit's happened in 85 too.
Absolute truth.
But, we're in a sick ass world right now.
Well, a buddy of mine was in the mall, Christiansburg Mall. It's been within the last year. He had been in the shoe store. What is that one?
Encore?
Not Super Shoes, but shoe department.
Okay.
There was a lady in there shopping, had a little kid with her. And he said, I noticed that she wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the little kid. He said, so a little bit later, I see this kid going through the mall. The mother's not with her. And she's headed to the front doors.
Oh, man.
And he said, so I just kind of followed after. And she was little, less than 5. So he said, I called up to her about where the ice cream place was, because that's where she was going, was the ice cream place.
Yeah.
Mother's still nowhere in sight. So then he said, I ended up walking her back to the shoe store. And at that point, the lady and the employees in the shoe store were just starting to look for her.
My gosh.
But she had already made it all the way from there to almost center court before my buddy happened to see her and then took her back. And I even told him, I was like, dude, thank God you're who you are.
Yes.
And not someone that could
Makes me
see that
sick.
as a potential opportunity.
Brother, it makes me sick.
Yeah, over a pair of freaking shoes,
And my wife, she'll get mad at me so many, because I almost fixate on stupidity.
Right.
I have a bad call it a tick or something, but if you're stupid, I'm probably going to stare at you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Hey, hence the reason you took a picture of me the first time.
yeah, dude. No, I just wanted to kill you. No, you were in the wild, man. We can't have the wild. We can't have mullets running wild.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know, and she'll do this to me, and I'll be somewhere and I'll see a kid. It happens in Target a lot for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see a kid just run by, barely can walk, barely can do anything. No parents. And I've threatened Kim so many times to be like, I'm going to pick up this child and I'm just going to stand here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stand here. And then whenever the parent finally figures out that they have lost their child, I'm going to let them have it.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I haven't done it mainly because I'm married.
Right.
And because I don't want anybody to tase me thinking I'm a predator.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely,
that'd be a shitty situation to have to explain to,
Yeah, that's
to
right.
CPD. But you know, it just drives me wild. It is
yeah.
so simple. It's no freaking wonder, man,
Yep.
with the lack of parenting that is going on and the lack of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're just naive too. I guess they're just, well, the baby's here. I'm gonna look at this formula.
But you know, that's still crazy because you think about the information that we have today, and the amount of information that is pumped out to us. It used to be it would take days or maybe even a week or more for something that happened on the West Coast to make its way to this side of the country, and now you know it travels within seconds.
Oh yeah, tweet.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. You know, social media is it's a good thing, and then you know, there's of course, obviously, like anything else, all of it in moderation.
Sure.
You know, you can have too much of anything.
100%.
It's funny how that's all flipped around because, shoot, I remember when Facebook was, I guess you would say, still in its infancy.
Okay.
Kind of when I left the PD. They've been around for maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And the PD was very adamant. You should not have a social media account.
Yeah.
We cannot stop you from having said social media account, but understand that if you do, you better not post anything about work, any pictures about work, anything about any calls that you were ever on, et cetera, et cetera. They were like, I mean, a laundry list to the point where you're like, well, then what would I even have this for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just being goofy right there, but
I mean, it's still that way. I mean, everybody's under an alias. Everybody's, you know, whatever.
But I notice now that even police departments are using it as a recruiting tool.
Yep.
So, you know, the views have changed on it to some extent.
Yep.
But, you know, there again, you know, there has to be some form of moderation with
Sure.
it.
Sure. 100%. Speaking of social media, I've got one last question.
Okay.
All right. So Adam P., and it's not Adam Preston. It's a different Adam.
Another
P.
Adam P.
He was going to call in. You know, I briefly touched on this, but he shied away from it. So shout out to Adam, man. We love you.
Yeah. Love you, brother. Love
All
all
right.
my brothers and sisters in blue and brown and gray. And,
I know, man.
you know,
Special place, and you know, you were in it for 3 times as long as I was, but there's a special place in my heart for it.
it's cool. It's cool.
All right. So Adam P. asked, is it hard keeping those sides tight with such a drippy back?
You know, the sides are the hardest part because my hair, even at my age, still grows so fast.
Yeah.
So when I go get a haircut, I always tell Isa. Because of
Still
my
doing
hair.
it.
Yep,
Still doing it.
yep. So I always tell him, I'm like, brother, I'll see you in about 2 to 3 weeks because I know that in 2 to 3 weeks I'm going to need her cleaned up.
Dude, I do my own, and I have to do it every week or I look like a baby duck.
Oh, yeah.
I look very fluffy and stupid.
And if I let it go to past the 3rd week, ball cap.
Yep, you got to cover it up.
Got to wear the ball
Cover it
cap.
up. I mean, we're all human.
Yeah,
You know, you
absolutely.
can't be perfect all the time.
Absolute truth.
And that's the thing, you know. I think that's the hardest part is everybody with social media nowadays is held to a certain standard. You know, everybody's judging themselves off of everybody's, you know, highlight reel.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's unfortunate. And, you know I'm human. I make all sorts of mistakes. And I've made mistakes in my career. I've made mistakes in my family life. I've made mistakes as a friend.
Yeah.
You know, and they all hit home. They all have a different weighting in my heart, you know.
I agree. You know, and I try to always, I try to acknowledge, when I do make those mistakes. Shoot, a couple weeks ago, I butted in on a conversation to tell somebody something that could have waited at work. And I went back later and apologized to both of them. And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And I said, dude, like, it was disrespectful. I need to apologize because I feel bad about it. And so I'm sorry, that I did that. And
that holds so much weight. When even they've probably moved past it, didn't think twice about it.
Yeah, they did. And they were like, what are you talking about? Butted in, and I had to remind them of what it was.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, my daughter's 25.
Okay.
And
did she get married?
She got
Did
married.
I saw
yes.
pictures you put up.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She got married like 11 months after I got married.
Okay.
Her husband is awesome.
Cool.
Like awesome. Love sports.
Yeah.
So, man, we always have something to talk about. We got a lot of things in common. He's very different in other ways than I am.
Yeah.
But
handsome.
What's that?
So he's handsome.
Oh, yeah. He's handsome, and he's clean cut.
Oh, no, we can't be having that.
Yeah. It's so funny because I'll say something, and it is totally off the wall. And I look over, and he's laughing, and my daughter goes, oh, my God, Dad.
Don't encourage him.
Yeah, I know.
I get that. My wife is like, if anybody like gives me an inkling that they might have a sense of humor, it's over. And then Kim's like, oh boy, here we go.
Oh yeah, my wife's like, whenever we go somewhere, she knows that we're gonna run into somebody I know.
Yep.
And if she's with me, it's gonna probably take at least twice as long as she thinks because I'm gonna run into somebody I know. We went on a motorcycle ride the 2nd of January. Went over to Walker Valley Market in Bland.
Right.
I was walking in. A couple of people were hollering at me that I knew. Gosh, we went somewhere not long ago. Oh, we were in Blacksburg at a restaurant, and I saw 2 or 3 people in there that I knew.
Yeah.
And she's like, is there anywhere?
Yeah. It took me a while to get used to it again because we lived in the city for so long.
Yeah.
And here, if you don't throw up a finger when you pass somebody, everybody's like looking to see if they know that the person in the car. And my buddy Nate, he's like, bro, you never see me. And I'm like, well, I went 15 plus years knowing I'm not going to see anybody that I really know.
Right.
So I didn't really look,
Yeah.
I'm not oblivious, but I just wasn't doing the stare down to see, what's his name from
Right.
In
the meantime, I look like I'm campaigning for office, I'm riding through the dealership because I'm waving with both hands, and then hollering at people.
Bring me your baby.
Yeah. That's right.
Who needs a kiss from Chico?
But, with Haley being a little older, she's done really well, and like as a parent, I could not be more proud of how she's done, not only with her work, but her choice and who she married to, and she's happy, and that's the goal.
That's the point, man.
And so now, we've got Jess's kids, and so I always try to put my best foot forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want them to learn things. I want them to understand things. Again, their dad is phenomenal. Dude can do anything, like build anything, fix anything. I can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All I got is these curly locks,
And your soul, my friend.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm telling
Stop
you,
forgetting
you're such a good dude.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I can't really, I guess I do try, but at the same time, like it just comes natural to like people and want to talk to people and want to know people. And I remember a lady commented one time that was riding around with me, and I was talking to people. I was like, hey, Charlie. Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
And she's like, you sure do know a lot of people. And I said, people like to hear their name.
Yep.
They like to hear their name. And
be recognized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feel like you remember them, that you're important, that they've made an impact.
Exactly.
It is. And it's genuine. I can tell with you, I told you this in our last podcast, you're just a genuine human.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I try to do my best. I try to give my best.
Yeah.
I work best off of knowing, first of all, I like to see people laugh because I know if they're laughing and they're smiling, then they're feeling good.
Yep.
Whether they want to or not, they're feeling good at that moment.
Yep.
So I try to make people laugh. I try to do funny things or say funny things, you know what I mean? Or I try to find something to connect with them and make a joke out of it. And with my stepkids, I do the same thing, you know. I pick at them all the time. And
Yep.
it's a sign of affection,
Sure.
you know, to do that.
Yep. Now, was there a transition period from them getting to know you and you getting to know them to where you were like, I got to win these kids over? Was that a pressure you felt as a stepdad coming in?
It really wasn't, you know, because with having a child of my own,
Yeah.
and then her already being past that age, it was
Okay.
probably a little easier.
Sure.
But you know, obviously, you know me, you know that, you know, I'm friendly and outgoing.
Yep.
A lot of people find out that I was a cop and they're like, really? Like, you don't seem like you're mean enough.
Yeah. God,
And,
what a stupid stigma, man.
Yeah. And that, you know, my dad was a police officer and my dad had like a stellar reputation.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that in the 30 years he spent at Radford PD,
Yeah.
not once did he ever call out.
Wow.
30 years of never calling out. He said, I guess when I got maxed out on my sick leave, I guess the rest of it I just lost because I never used any of it. You know, and that was amazing. So I've tried to pattern
That's
myself
insane,
after
man.
him. And
Yeah. That's a good example to have.
Yeah, I try to have that work ethic. I want my stepkids to see me getting up and going to work each day.
Yeah.
I want them to see it that when I don't necessarily feel like it,
Yep.
I still go.
Yep.
You know, because just laying out isn't an option because when I'm not there, somebody has to do my work. And it's not up to somebody else to do my work. It's up to me. And I want them to see that. I want them to see every positive aspect that they can. And I also try to take what I've learned and what I've seen at the police department and apply it in a way that they can understand because they're both getting to the age where they're about ready to get their licenses. And so with that in mind, Jess will ask me my opinion on stuff when the kids want to do something. And I'll give her the particulars, you know, from like a legal standpoint.
Yep.
And she's like, you know, I never even really thought about it that way. And I said, you know, I'm sorry, but my 2.5 decades has burned that into my soul to where that's how I think, you know, as I think about these particular things. And so
You can't help
Yeah.
but to at a certain point, right?
right. And I want them to understand that there's certain things that bring danger. You know, so I try to mention sometimes certain accidents and stuff that I've worked and things that I've seen, incidents that I've seen, because I want them to understand that some of this stuff is real.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just something that you see a 15 or 30-second clip on TikTok about. So I'd worked one time I'd worked a fatality, traffic fatality that occurred at Roanoke in Maine. And I say that because I came in on the tail end of it. We had a team at Blacksburg that was accident reconstruction team. So if you had a serious or fatal accident, they would call the team members out and we would gather the information and try to reconstruct the accident. So I was working one day, my supervisor called me in, walked into his office, and he lays down a 2-page accident report because there were 3 drivers involved. And he said, look that over. That's going to be assigned to you. Looks like it may turn into a fatality. And so we're going to need you to do your thing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I was like, I don't remember hearing about this. And he said, well, it looks like from what I can gather from reading the report that it was just a rear end collision. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm asking, because it's the center of town.
Yeah.
Like Roanoke and Maine is the center of town. Everything from there goes north, south, east, or west. And that's where it happened at. It was in the end of August. So what happened was there's a car stopped at the red light, which was a Jeep Wrangler, Ford Explorer in the middle, and then there was a Ford or Chevy, like service van, like
Okay.
just a work van, the third vehicle. So the third vehicle comes up, strikes the second vehicle, pushes it into the first.
Gotcha.
So I'm looking it over. Nothing seems like, as far as the accident goes, out of the ordinary. But I look at my supervisor, and I was like, "Do you notice anything about this accident report that's odd?" And he's like, "No." And I said, "You notice all three drivers have the same middle name?" And he's like, "I didn't notice that." And I said, "They all three have the same middle name. Is that right?" Because it was an odd middle name.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like it was Jonathan or William or Edward. Like it was something different. But I was like, that's like super odd. And so come to find out, they all three did have that same middle name, which I thought was very odd.
That's weird.
Yes, very odd.
Yeah.
It'd been odd enough if there was two
Sure.
with that same middle name. Because I don't know what your middle name is, but
Not common.
yes.
Jared.
Okay. So-
Girade. Never seen another one.
Yeah.
Right. Except for my
mine's-
grandpa.
Yeah, right. So mine's Wayne.
Yeah.
And so, so what had happened was the guy in the second vehicle was an older guy. Upon impact, it had ruptured a blood vessel somewhere in either his neck or his head or something.
Yeah.
So the initial responding officer that had worked the wreck said, "Man, I almost just did an exchange of information on this," meaning he almost didn't even write it up as a report.
Wow.
And he said, "The only reason that I wrote it up is because it broke the back glass out of the Explorer." And he said, I was like, man, I'm probably going to have to do a report on this. He said, because the Jeep really didn't have anything but a little dent in the bumper.
Yeah.
And the van only only bent the bumper on it.
Yeah.
So the Explorer was really the only thing that had damage, and it didn't have a lot other than the broken window.
And they were just occupied one.
Each one had one in it. Yep. And so he worked it. He went ahead and took the information down and all like that. And so the story was that the guy driving the van had said that his brakes failed. And that's why he couldn't stop in time and hit the Explorer in the rear end. So when I talked to the officer, he said, yeah, I remember the older guy in the Explorer was standing on the sidewalk, and he said he kind of mimicked swinging a golf club and said, I hope this doesn't affect my golf swing. And so the next day, that guy woke up with like splitting headache.
Oh, gosh.
So he told his wife, he's like, call and make me an appointment to see the doctor. Like, I got a really bad headache I can't shake.
Yeah.
So they told her to bring him in at a certain time. She was on her way to the doctor's office with him. He went unconscious in the front passenger seat. So she diverted, took him to Montgomery Hospital. They flew him to Roanoke. He was in Roanoke for like 3 weeks, and then he passed away.
Oh, my gosh, man.
So the initial responding officer didn't have a whole lot of information he could add. And I said, all right, so the van said that his brakes failed. So what happened with the van after that? And I said, did you have it towed somewhere? And he said, no, the guy wouldn't let me tow it. And I'm like, so what did they do with it? And he said, I think he drove it back to Giles County.
Oh, gosh.
And I was like, man, how in the world do they drive a thing back to Giles County with no brakes? And he said, I don't know. So I have to go to Giles County and talk to the business that owns the van. And they had bought it from a small dealer in Christiansburg that, you know, sold some of those style vehicles. It's just a small car lot.
Yeah.
So I got, you know, the records from where he bought it and stuff like that. And I said, so where's the van now? And he said, well, it's over at the body shop, because I sent it over there to have the front end fixed on it. And so I went over to the body shop, and they hadn't done anything to it yet.
Oh.
You know, which was good.
Yeah.
So I said, do not touch it. I'm going to get a search warrant, and I'm going to seize it, because I'm going to need to do some work on it.
Yeah.
So I went and got a search warrant. and seized it, had it towed back over to Blacksburg. So in talking to, the driver, he's like, yeah, he said, I was coming through downtown Blacksburg, hit the brakes, nothing happened. I'm pumping them, nothing's happening. I couldn't stop. I hit this guy in the rear end. So I was like, and then what happened? He's like, well, I called my owner and told him what happened. And I said, and then what happened? He said, well, he told me to just be careful, but drive it back across the mountain. And I'm like, I can't believe these people. Dude. Like I wouldn't have done it, but hey, I wasn't there. So
you've been in one accident. Let's try it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, come to find out, they bought the van, had to have some work done on it, had to have some tires and brake work done on it. So they took it to a shop to have the tires and the brake work done, and have it inspected. So that shop didn't have an alignment machine. So they had to send it across town in Harrisburg to a different shop to have it aligned.
Yeah.
So I went over there to get their records. So the guy's like, well, you might want to talk to old Johnny in there, because Johnny's the one that did the alignment on it. And he said that the brakes failed on him when he come around the building with it. I was like, all right, interesting. So I interview him, and he's telling me the same thing. He's like, yeah, man. He said it literally about scared the shit out of me, because he said I about went out into the traffic in it before I could get it stopped, but finally the brakes caught. So I'm like, okay. So nobody had seen anything to do with the brakes that would lead them to believe there was an issue or anything like that. So I start doing research to see if I can connect the driver at the time of the accident with the guy at the garage saying the brakes failed on him. So I went through their phone records. I got subpoenas for their phone records. I tried to chase down and see if they went to school together, if they had relatives, if one relative was married to another one, if there was nothing to tie those two guys together, just as opposite ends of the spectrum as they could be as far as the circles they ran in. So I couldn't connect those two. So I called the state police, and they have a team, and this is what they do. So they came up to Blacksburg. We got another search warrant to basically tear the van apart piece by piece until we got down to the very base of the braking system on it. Yeah. So that's what we did. Took it apart piece by piece. Could not find anything to say that the brakes would have failed.
Air in the brake line.
Never could have made it. Yeah, couldn't make it. We couldn't replicate it. Tried for hours to replicate it. Couldn't do it. Couldn't find anything mechanically speaking to say this may have caused it. Yeah. So, I do all of this. At that time, Virginia wasn't really pursuing like negligence and, where someone got killed in an automobile accident. I've noticed now that they're more, if someone's doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, they'll go higher than just a traffic charge. Yeah. So what happens, this guy got a traffic ticket out of the accident, but because somebody had passed away, he appealed it.
Okay.
All right. So I completed my investigation, and I will tell you that I spent 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 straight weeks investigating that.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I was constantly trying to follow up leads. I went to the place where the van was purchased by the service company in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
I went there, and the guy's like, I don't have to show you anything. And I'm like, okay. I said, you don't want to show me your records? And he's like, nope, not without a search warrant. And I'm like, you know what? I'm about search warranted out. So I call up my old buddy that works for the motor vehicle dealer board. And he said, are you still there? And I said, yep. And he said, give me 15 minutes and I'll be there. So he walked in and looked at the dude, and he said, open your files. And the guy just looked at him and had to open them.
Yeah.
And I was like, how'd you do that? And he said, he can't deny me.
Yeah.
Because he said, if he denies me, I'll take his license down off the wall.
That shit right
yeah. So I got all the information on the van. And it turned out that the van, he purchased it at an auction in Richmond. It was an insurance auction. So he purchased it wrecked. had it fixed, didn't tell the purchaser that it had been wrecked and
A
repaired.
salvage title type situation. Or?
I don't think it was a salvage title because I think that would have had to been disclosed.
Yeah.
He just didn't disclose that it had like $3,000 and some odd dollars worth of undercarriage damage done to it.
Oh.
So that dude was, needless to say, the guy that owned the van was pissed
Yeah.
that he had bought a van that was wrecked and wasn't told.
Yep. I've done about $3,000 worth of undercarriage damage to people.
Brother, I feel your pain.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've done about $3,000 worth of damage to buffets.
Oh God.
But so anyway, I put all this together, and like I said, it literally was me working on it every single day in some way, shape, or form, either out in the field doing something or sitting in an office and just typing narratives.
Yeah.
So when I went to court to testify on this, I go in, they call me as a witness. I sit down, they ask the basic questions: state your name, state your employment, were you employed on this date, did you investigate this wreck, tell us what you found.
Yep.
I was like, okay. And I talked, and I talked, and I talked, and I talked. And I talked for a solid hour about from point A to point B in my investigation.
Yep.
From the point at which they handed me the report to the point at which I deduced
Yeah.
it's open for interpretation as to whether or not you believe the brakes failed or the brakes didn't fail.
Yeah.
So when I finished, the defense attorney only had one question, and it had absolutely nothing to do with my investigation. Nothing. It had to do with the charge. Like, why did you choose this particular code section?
Yeah.
And I was kind of taken aback a little bit. I was like, I think I called the Commonwealth attorney and they told me that's what to charge.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. That was the only question.
Was it like
he
a
had.
plea, like something with the Commonwealth, or?
As far as with this guy,
Yeah.
no, because he was appealing it.
Oh, okay.
So this was,
All right.
this is during the appeal. And so the judge said, since there's no further questions, you can step down.
Yeah.
So I started to step down, and he said, but before you do, there's something that I want to say. And I was like, oh.
When
shit.
a judge stops you.
Yes, I'm like, oh, what did I do? And he said, in all my years sitting on the bench, I have to say that was the most complete and thorough testimony that I have ever heard anyone given. It was clear, it was neat, it was concise, it was to the point, and it was so thorough that neither one of these two attorneys nor I have any questions for you.
Yeah.
And he said, I just want to commend you, officer, on a job well done.
Damn straight, man.
And dude, I was sitting there and I'm like,
Oh.
like, wait a minute, what?
Where's
Is
the
this
camera?
me? You know, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then I turned around and there's like half a dozen guys that I work with at the PD that heard it all. And when I walked to leave, they were like, dude, that was phenomenal.
That's awesome,
like, that was
man.
absolutely phenomenal. So that was kind of like, you know, a high point for me as far as, you know, putting together an investigation like that. Because like I said, I believe, you know, people deserve your best.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to a time like that, when someone loses their life in an automobile accident.
I mean, if you're that thorough with a credit card investigation, somebody's life, right?
Exactly.
mean-
Exactly. And, you know, we are coming up this year in the month of January, will be the 10-year anniversary of traffic fatality that I personally was involved in on Route 11 in Pulaski County. They always say that most accidents happens within a mile of your home. And they were right, because I was about a half a mile from where I lived. set the stage. I was supposed to work. I had a part-time gig in the mall because I had retired out from the police department. So it was, again, January of 2013. So I was supposed to work later in the day. It started snowing. It's so odd how things will get set in motion from one event. All right, so I was selling a guy a Jeep. He was supposed to meet me at my house at a certain time. Started snowing. I was a little late getting home from the gym. And so I was in Fairlawn, and he called. And at that time, I lived in Dublin, up on Route 11. And I saw who it was, and I was like, hey, man, I'm almost there. Give me just a minute, and I'll meet you there. Because I thought he was at my house. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. He said, I was going to get my wife to bring me up there, but because it's snowing, I'd really rather her not be out. If you're still out, why don't you just swing by the house and pick me up and run me up there? I'll pay you for the Jeep, and I'll just take it home, and we'll go about our day. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I swung by the house, picked him up. That's what set the wheels in motion. Okay, so my timing was totally different.
Sure.
Based on that. Not blaming him. No way, shape, or form am I blaming him. I'm just saying the event itself set those wheels in motion. So we go up, sold him the Jeep. I had another Jeep that I was going to go take to work. Well, the manager called from the store in the mall, and she said, boy, it's snowing. Would you mind coming in early? I don't like being out when it's bad weather. I was like, sure, I don't mind. So let me get a shower, and I'll come in. So I hustled up, got a shower, pulled out of my subdivision. Like I said, I hadn't gone quarter to a half a mile. So I'm going toward Radford from Dublin. There's a car on the left-hand side of the road that's off the road where it slid off the road. Yeah. There's a deputy there working the accident. And I haven't talked a lot about this publicly. But there's a reason that I'm telling this, and that is that I want everyone to understand everybody has stuff that they go through, no matter who they are.
Yeah. This is the first I've heard about this.
Yes. So, and like I said, it's just not something that I talk a lot about. I do with folks that are close to me because I want them to understand like how quickly things happen. So car off the side of the road, left-hand side of the road, there's a deputy working it. There's 3 to 4 inches of snow on Route 11, but it's really slick. Where it's just started and, it really hasn't gotten started melting or anything yet. And so where cars have driven in the snow, they've got 2 tracks. But then in the center, it's kind of built up.
Yeah.
So there's a car coming at me. She starts to slide and lose control. So the way the road was, when you start kind of sliding to the right, your car will actually kind of dip down. And so I had to counter steer because she kind of slid into my lane. So I counter steered around her and was able to avoid contact. And I was like, boy, that was close like that. And about the time that thought went through my head, the car behind her did the same thing. And this time when it slid and was at such an angle and a speed that I was like, okay, I'm going to hit this one. Yeah. And then as the car started to turn in the snow and ice, then I realized, I'm going to hit this one in the passenger door and this is going to be bad. And at the last second, I'll never forget the look on the lady's face in the passenger seat. Yeah. Because basically the front of my vehicle impacted that door. And so it spun me around and I was facing the opposite direction. So I got out and I walked over, and by this point, the car has slid off the side of the road. And so I walk up and I look in at the passenger, and I could tell by the way her head was bent over to the side that it had broke her neck. Oh. And so the deputy comes across the road, and I think I said something like, man, you need to get somebody here quick, because like that right there is bad. Yeah. And so I knew it was bad when they wouldn't let me like anywhere near, you know, the vehicle or anything like that. So, you know, fast forward, you know, they do their thing, and, you know, one of the deputies ends up taking me home, you know. And so later that evening, I get a message from, follow me on this one, okay? It is my daughter's cousin's wife.
Okay.
So her husband, his dad, and my daughter's mom were brother and sister.
Okay.
Okay. So that guy's wife messages me and said, "Hey, were you involved in a wreck on Route 11 today?" And I said, "Yes, actually I was." And she said, "I don't know if you know this or not, but the driver of the other car who survived was my mom." And I'm like, holy cow. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you're going to be involved in that devastating of an accident, but then, you know, you're actually going to know someone in the other vehicle.
Yeah.
And so to this day, she and I are what I would say super good friends.
Yeah.
You know, we talk often, but we always make it a point to talk on the day that that accident happened.
Yeah.
More for support for each other, you know.
Sure. Now the lady did lose her life.
The passenger did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure did. And it's, you know, it's tough, you know, even though it's not your fault, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's really no way it could have been avoided. You know, the lady that was driving the other car was trying to move over because of the other car that was wrecked, and then just got in the heavy snow.
Yeah.
And then in the heavy snow, you just couldn't do anything. It was so slick.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I know people don't understand when I'm doing it, there's snow on the ground, and I'm driving a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I'm locked up.
White knuckled.
Yeah, 10 and 2, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'm taking it slow because I'm like, if you knew
Yeah.
the speed at which it happens and the violence at which it happens,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, then you'd know.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
so
fast do you think that both parties were at that point?
maybe like 35 each, maybe tops.
Yeah.
And
That's a 70-mile-an-hour collision.
bingo. It's exactly what I tell people. It's like hitting a solid wall at 70.
Yeah.
So, you know, I share that because, again, you know, I want people to understand that we're all human.
Yes.
You know, we all have things that we go through, burdens that we carry.
And things that are unavoidable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though you may not understand it.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. And it's all in what you make it. You know, August 26, 2011, I got up to get ready for work and had a heart attack.
Yeah.
You know, and of course people have said, well, what did that feel like? And it was weird. You know, I woke up, it's 3:45. I thought, man, I can snooze for 15 more minutes. I don't have to get up to 4. So, you know, I laid there and, man, my chest is hurting. I must have strained it the other day doing bench.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a minute. Like, it's been like 3 days, 4 days since I did bench. Like, that can't be it. So I got up and I tried to walk it off, and it wasn't helping. So, and I went downstairs, or I tried to lay back down, and that wasn't helping. So I got up, went downstairs, and it was hurting to the point where I was like, man, I need something. So I opened up the cabinet. My daughter couldn't take pills at that time, so we had like liquid Tylenol or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't even measure it. Like, I just took a drink.
Yeah.
And like an idiot, you know, I drank that, and I made a cup of coffee, and I went outside and sat down on the deck, and 20 minutes, you know, or so later, it kind of eased off, and I was like, man, I don't know what that was. Whatever it was, it hurt. You know, I'm going to have to find out what that was, go see a doctor. So I got up to go back inside, and as soon as I stepped through the dining room door, man, it hit me again.
Shoo.
And I'm like, man, what is going on? I'm like, is this a heart attack? I'm like, man, I'm 43 years old. Like, I ride a bicycle 5 days a week at work,
Yeah.
and I go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week. Like, I can't be having a heart attack. So I'm think, what are the symptoms? And they say it feels like an elephant standing on your chest. It didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
So they said I have numbness in your left arm. And I'm like, it ain't numb, it tingles.
Yeah.
You know, and it burns. Like both sides of my chest, both my biceps burn. And so I tried to lay down on the couch, and as soon as I laid down on the couch, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be sick on my stomach.
Ooh.
And so I got up and went to the bathroom, and then I'm like, okay, I'm about ready to puke for some reason, so something is wrong.
Yeah.
Because I just got nauseous like that, so something's wrong. So I went upstairs, got everybody up. I was married to my daughter's mom at that time. She took me to the hospital. You know, they do that heart enzyme test. The first one I think was normal. The second one came back elevated, and then they had to wait like 8 hours to do a third one.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and so when they come back with that one, they put me in a room. So then when they come back with that one, they were like, yeah, it's definitive. You've had a heart attack. And so you can imagine, all right, so I've been a bike cop for 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Lifted weights, taught defensive tactics, taught firearms, taught baton, all this stuff.
Yep.
And so now I have to tell my sergeant, like I texted him that morning, I was like, hey man, I may be a little late coming in. Because at that point I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, if they'll hurry up with this test, like I can still get out of here, go home, get my clothes, go to the gym, do my workout, and then I can go on to work.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking, you know. So then when they come back and they're like, oh, buddy, you've had a heart attack. You'll be staying with us for a little while. Hope you enjoy your stay.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I tell Dave, I'm like, hey, man, I need to call you. When's a good time? He's like, go ahead and call me. So call him up, and I was like, hey, buddy. And this is my sergeant, Dave Wilson. I was like, hey, buddy, you sitting down? And he's like, yep. And I said, no, seriously, man, you need to sit down. And I heard his chair move, and he's like, okay, go ahead. And so I broke the news to him and told him, and you just silence, you know what I mean? Like you don't know what to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it literally, I try to tell as many people about that, because I'm like, look, man, you know, there's no way it should have happened to me.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the look on the cardiologist's face when he came in and saw me laying in the bed. He's like, when they said I had a 43-year-old guy over here that had a heart attack, like I'm expecting someone that's like kind of maybe morbidly obese or somebody that's really out of shape, not you. You know, and it's one of those things where, you know, you have to always be cautious of what's going on with you. And if it seems out of the ordinary, then it's something that's out of the ordinary.
So that change kind of your approach to anything, or, you know, were you just kind of like, okay, all right, back to it?
You know, I was stubborn. You know, I had a point to prove. You know, again, you know, you make some mistakes along the way. But I will tell you that what I took away from that is that I try not to let anything at any particular point in time completely get to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm human, so I have moments where I'll get aggravated or I'll get pissed, or, you know, something will hit me wrong or whatever. But I was also given a second chance.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of my friends weren't given those chances.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of my buddies that they're one and only. They just never got another chance. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice to those guys if I don't live each day to my absolute best. Give every day my best. Appreciate every day that's given. You know, I go into work in the mornings, you know, and I try to make sure, you know, I speak to everybody that I see that I'm within, you know, speaking distance of. I try to give people a smile. You know, you never know who's going to need that.
Yep. You never know what anybody else is going through.
Exactly. And like I said, you know, I was given a second chance. I was given a second chance for a reason. It wasn't something that was just haphazard. So, I try to make the most of that every day. And like I'd said earlier in the podcast, like I don't want to take anything with me when I leave this earth.
Yep.
Leave it all here. I want all the knowledge, ever how little or foolish that may be.
Even the little stuff is big.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Somebody hopefully can use it for something somewhere.
Yep.
If they do nothing other than retell the stories that I've told.
Dude, I know I have. I mean, I had a conversation with Mark, my old sheriff.
Right.
And he was like, dude, Chico is a freaking hoot. When we died laughing about the dude that pulled the chip bag off his face afterwards,
Absolutely.
It's just little stuff like that, that in this platform, having just a way that we can sit down and shoot the shit and,
right.
Just, you never know what somebody's going to take from one of these.
Absolutely.
We may never know, but I know what I take from it. And I take the fact that I know that I've got a friend and a brother in you. Yep. And I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Back at you, brother. Absolutely.
The thing, so when Chico walked in, I noticed that he had a couple things in his hand when he came into the studio. And one thing that he gave me, right?
Yep.
He gave me this Velcro patch that if anybody's ever been in law enforcement, we have to wear our vests, right? Whether it's an outer carry or an inner, we typically have identifying patches on those. And he gave me one that says Hollywood. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, there's a killer story behind this. So basically, what he told me, why don't you tell it? You're here.
So we were getting new vests at the police department, and so they were calling guys in off the road to be measured for your new vest. And so I was on bike patrol, and of course I was working that day. So I go in, and I'm sure I had on my bike gear, I had on my helmet. I can't imagine I would have had on my sunglasses in the building, but so I walk around the corner, and the guy that's doing the measuring is standing there, and the first thing out of his mouth is, well, Hollywood.
And it just stuck.
I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, and you look like Hollywood standing there. And I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was telling Rob, I didn't even have the mullet or the beard, obviously, then, because I was still in law enforcement. So they order the vest, and 6 weeks later, when it comes in, my name panel for it, instead of it saying, my name or having police on it, it had Hollywood.
So daggone cool, man.
Yep.
And I really do appreciate this.
Absolutely.
With, when somebody comes into the podcast, obviously it's not expected, but we always like to have something just to remember that by.
Definitely.
And him bringing this in, and he also brought me a challenge coin from the PD that is obviously it means more to me. Right. I really do appreciate that. And also the third thing that he had in his hand was very odd. So he starts scrolling through these postcards, right? And it's what's the dude's name? Pull those bad boys up, and I might remember when I see it. So
Heath Ledger.
Ledger, all right. And they come from a movie, and the movie just happens to be, what's the movie?
Brokeback Mountain.
I've never seen it.
Dead silence.
Ever.
As Rob and I look at each other like, yeah, right.
So what's the story behind? There's literally 6 or 7 of these postcards with different scenes from the movie. Not not bad scenes, but just love scenes.
And I've lost so much stuff over the years. How in the world these things have survived? I will never know. But,
oh my goodness!
They have pictures, and so if you read the writing on the back corresponds with the picture on the front.
Oh gosh. Okay, so here's one. He is in a sweet embrace. 2 cowboys right there with a sweet embrace. It says, I will always remember the warmth of our embrace. XOXO. Ramon?
Ramon.
The hell is Ramon?
Do you remember Beverly Hills Cop?
Yes. Okay. Yep. Never mind. Say no more. So there's a couple. There's a dude smelling a denim, probably a Wrangler denim, and it says, "The smell of your love intoxicates me. Thinking of you, Ramon." There's one of dude crying in a car. Obviously, he's hurting. Missing you so much it hurts. Call me, Ramon. And then the last one, I'm going to put pictures of these up if you don't mind on Instagram because this is hilarious.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's fireworks in the background. Obviously, it's probably 4th of July, and it is just a beautiful engagement of family and fun. And this one says, "Don't forget the spark we had that night, Ramon." My God, Chico.
Dude, it's I'm still taken aback, at the friendships that I've developed over the years.
Yeah,
and,
man.
Man, I love a good laugh. I love something that's funny. That was so unique. Like it would pop me so much because the mail service would bring those in
To the PD.
to the PD.
Yeah.
The receptionist would take it.
Oh, this one says Sweet Chico Cole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so she would go through it, and then it would have to be checked by superior.
Yep.
And then those would wind up in my mailbox, and I would laugh every time because I'm like, the creativity, and then it would just be random.
Yeah.
There might be 3 months that passed to the point where you couldn't look for it or anything.
Yeah, I'm expecting it.
And we had some great practical jokes, like that. Those guys would do that. And that was actually one of the mail carriers and a downtown business owner that would send me those.
I was going to say, that was my next question.
Yeah, because we would give each other gag gifts and stuff all the time. And like I said, just, things that that are out of the ordinary, that make you laugh. And
that's what the world needs more of,
oh, my God.
man.
And I love people that don't care.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I mean the good kind of
Yes.
don't care.
Yeah.
The kind that don't care what you think about them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're going to do what they want to do that makes them happy, and they don't care whether you laugh about it or not. I can remember, you ever had a Carol Lee donut?
No.
Never had a Carol Lee donut?
I don't think so.
Oh, my goodness. You don't know what you're missing.
Where's it?
It's in Blacksburg.
No.
It's up on North Main now.
I don't think I have, dude.
So years ago, it was on College Avenue. Their donuts are so good, they even sell their own T-shirts.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
All right.
Okay, it is phenomenal. Around the Blacksburg circuit, if you mention Carol Lee Donuts, people make funny noises.
Okay.
So, yeah, exactly. So I'm on bike patrol, okay? And Charlie Eads is on motorcycle patrol. Charlie passed away in 2019. And this is one of my favorite stories of his. So he pulls up on a motorcycle. I'm sitting on College Avenue on my bicycle, just kind of watching traffic go by. And there's all kinds of students on bicycles and, walking and stuff going to and from class. Obviously, we're in uniform.
Yep.
So he pulls up. He gets off a motorcycle where there was actually 4 motorcycle parking spots on College Avenue at that time across from the Lyric.
Okay.
Carol Lee was right beside the Lyric. So
How did I not have one?
I can't figure it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Charlie gets off a motorcycle and he starts in the direction to walk across the street. And I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going across the street. Get me a donut. You want anything?" And I was like, "Are you for real?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm for real." Why wouldn't I? And I said, "Are you going to seriously eat a donut out here? And all these college students walking around? For real?"
You're fitting the stigma.
So I'm going to paraphrase
All right.
as PG as I can get it.
Hey, man, go PG-13. Get wild.
Charlie's like, "I don't give a shit what these people think about me. If I want to eat a donut, I'm going to eat a donut."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, my God, Charlie, please tell me you're not going to get me a blueberry."
Hint.
I was like, "Get me a blueberry." So he comes across the street, and there we sit on College Avenue, man, 2 cops in uniform eating a Carol Lee donut.
Doing what you do, man.
And I tell you right now, that is one of the reasons that I absolutely love that dude, because he just didn't care.
Just be you.
He absolutely, it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. And I said, I always loved hanging around him because he always made me laugh.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'll probably find it in my dad's house someday, but I second or third grade, maybe even first, I got some kind of award for being class clown.
Yep.
I know you probably find that hard to believe.
No, I got not class clown, but most, I can't remember what they called it, but it was like my senior year.
Right.
I was like hilarious or just whatever, you know? And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that translates as we get older. We just, we kind of age and
Yeah.
our jokes get worse and our stories become looser.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
The worst is, I go to tell Jessica something and she's like, "You've already told me that." I was like, "Oh, sorry."
Give me my moment, woman.
And then she throws it in 4 times. I'm like, that last comment was unnecessary.
Yeah. Can you, yeah, I'm old.
Yeah. Give me some credit here.
Well, buddy, I love you so much.
Brother, back at you.
And-
Much love to both of you guys.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for christening us once again. We're taking off. The boat is leaving harbor on 2023 voyage, and I really appreciate you sending us off and giving us your blessing. And I know there's more stories. I know there's more.
Dude, I was sitting here looking at this and I was like, probably by the time we get down the road a little ways, man, we might have an episode 3 on our hands.
There we go, brother. Well,
absolutely.
I'm sure. I know I would appreciate it, and I'm sure the fans would too, man. So
The 2 guests you have coming next week, like
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, I taught Joe in the academy.
Killer.
Yeah, he was, and I went against him in the fifth suit, and he's got it, man. I'm telling you, the dude right there, I'd take him on any call that there ever was.
I've heard he's a pit bull, man.
Yeah, he is, and I'll tell you, I love Matt Hand.
Awesome.
I know Matt Hand too.
Yep.
We joke about quote unquote the lounge.
The lounge. I'll bring it up. The
Yes.
lounge.
Yes,
All
and Matt has a sense of humor like no other.
Yeah,
So
I know. See, I've known Matt for a while, but not like known him, just
Right.
like talking to him and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think tune in next time, guys. We really appreciate you coming in, and we love you so much, Chico.
Thank you, brother. Love you guys too. Thank y'all for having me back. Man, it's been an absolute blast again.
Hell yeah. Until next time, this is Rob, James, and Chico signing out. We love y'all.